ordinary that we end right at, we're supposed to.
Sort of.
And, yeah, we had robust conversation.
Do we have to start with the poll hearing?
No, we're doing public comment. Thank you, Mia. Oh, I'm happy to see a lot of these people. That's great.
Not for you, sir.
Welcome, welcome. Good evening, all. Okay, we are back in open session. Our first item is public comment, and I just want to say that during public comment in the room or remotely, all voices are welcome, and we will work whatever problems we have together. That's the point here, and we are great believers in open process. So bring it on. Is anybody here tonight for public comment? Mia, got anybody waiting in the wings?
No, but you may want to give it a minute because they're all coming in now that it's open.
Okay.
So we have a few more attendees. You want to just ask again? If any, just
Is
remind me to
anyone,
raise-
yeah, or you can, as our angel of technology, you're kind of doing it,
A new title.
yeah?
So if you, I'd like, if you are in the attendees and you want to come in, please use the raise hand function.
For public comment, non-agenda item.
So no hands.
Okay, let's move on to something really interesting. We have a vacancy for the Assembly of Delegates, and we are going to be interviewing tonight. John, any comments before we get on to it?
No, I think you have information in your packet from the two gentlemen who have applied, and that being John Fuller and Peter O'Meara.
And they're well-known and credentialed and appreciated by the town, both of them. So this is a richness, a bounty of talent. Who would like to speak first?
Guess I am.
I guess so.
Well, I'd like to say I feel that I have a lot of experience for a job like this. I sat where you sat for about 14 years, got a good idea of how municipal government works. I think I can bring the same type of job that I did there, hopefully okay, to the Assembly of Delegates. I have been in touch with a member of the Assembly of Delegates to give me an idea of what's involved. I really think I have time now to do it because it's only one day a week. And even though I'm busy, I think a busy person can find time to do something. So I solicit your support to take this position. I have taken out papers for the election, and my nomination papers have been approved.
Any questions for Mr. Fuller?
No, the only question I had, Madam Chair, is that you feel you definitely have time, because I know how many committees you are on and how much time you devote to the town, and you have your business, and
Well, I am on two committees. One of them is a very busy committee, and that's getting near the end, I hope. And we'll find out in a couple of weeks how close to the end we are. That's the Charter Review Committee. The Veterans Committee and Memorial Day Committee, that's a slow-moving, takes a few years to get that underway. We've made some major steps in that, and Kevin Higgins has done a great job marshaling that particular committee. And as a veteran, that's why I'm on that committee. And I am a participant in the two events, so I thought it's a perfect place for me to give my expertise militarily. That's not going to be a problem there.
Okay.
Once charter review's over, then I've got more time.
I have to assume that we are adults here and we program our own time, so, good question, but he's responsible. Mark?
John, certainly the notion, well, I think both candidates have time and service to the town of Orleans, and I think one of my concerns with what's happening right now is that the county controls so much money in ARPA funding that, all of us are are so critically aware of some of the needs in the towns, especially New Orleans, for housing. And it's frustrating, I think, for us down here to have to compete with the majority of the Assembly of Delegates that are from the larger towns, representing Barnstable and Hyannis and Yarmouth and Dennis and Falmouth and the like. And so, I'm going to ask the same question of Peter. How do you think you can impact that assembly and get them to look at sharing that money with the small towns that are so much in need of those ARPA funds to really jumpstart our housing issues and help resolve those housing issues down here?
As you're pointing out, the voting in the assembly is weighted based on population. It would be my approach, I think affordable housing is a Cape-wide thing, and hopefully we can reach some kind of compromise on that. The thing is, you have to talk to the other small towns and build yourself a coalition with them so you can have a significant vote in issues like that. And that's what I would look forward to. As I told you, I have been talking to a person that is on the Assembly of Delegates, a medium-sized town, and to get some background on how that type of compromise and coalitions work. And that's how I would approach that.
Another question? So, and again, same question I'll ask Peter, but it's ironic that the Assembly of Delegates and the county government that's supposed to be working at that level of sharing and accommodating regionally gets to be so parochial where they take care of their own town. And so one of the things that I know you have been involved with over all the years here was regionalization when it comes to schools, as an example, and some of the battles, you've been around for a long time, and some of the battles of regionalizing here, even a couple of them with the K through 12 prospects that have never been able to be accomplished because, again, each town gets to be so parochial. Is that something that you've thought about in terms of, you did mention talking with the other smaller towns to try and get some kind of coalition, but what are your thoughts on working towards real regional goals? The Lower Cape, a lot of people think of as being distinctly different than Mid-Cape or the Upper Cape, but even down here, a lot of the towns don't like to work together too often. But, what are your thoughts on trying to not just have a coalition, but really try and get regional projects to become
Well,
a focus of the?
For me, it's getting to know the other delegates and find out how they really feel. And then once you know that, or think you know it, then to work with them and try to reach points where we can compromise, because you're not going to get it one way or the other. So we have to work on some compromise, I believe. And affordable housing's a good one. The Cape Cod Commission is another one. What are they doing, and keeping track of that. And then working with the county commissioners to see if we can reach agreements on things that are workable for the entire Cape.
Yeah. Anybody else?
John, this is again a question I'll ask Peter too, but my experience on this board, and I'll ask you for your experience, which went back a lot further, is that our communications with our representative to the county assembly is very sparse. And do you have thoughts about how the town, the select board, and other people in town can have a bigger part in communicating or helping to accomplish things at the county level?
One of the things that I think you know about me is if there's a meeting, I show up. I'm there, I listen, I read the material. I believe, and I don't know this for sure, but I believe we had a representative at one time that was very seldom at the Assembly of Delegates. So if you asked that person to report on something, he never went, so he didn't have anything to report. I would say to you, I'm going to make the meetings. I don't get sick often. I don't cut meetings. And I would bring it to you what we've accomplished. And for me, it would be once a quarter
Yes.
that I would request to sit down with you or in this particular type of thing and say, this is what we're accomplishing. What do you want me to bring to the Assembly of Delegates as far as Orleans goes?
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Thank you, John. Peter, want to chat with us?
Good evening. A good act to follow. Excellent.
You can hold your own, sir.
Yeah. So, Mr. Dunford kind of twisted my arm. I really hadn't kind of thought about it, but as I started to look at some of the assembly, material and websites, it kind of interested me. And I think because of my experience on the Finance Committee, but also kind of getting to a couple of the questions you asked. They have some subcommittees. One of them, Energy and Technology, that really kind of interested me because I think there's lots of opportunities there for Orleans and some of the other communities to maybe deal with that sharing question about resources and technology and the expertise that maybe the county could bring through some of its funding opportunities. And I think that's where I would see maybe a role that I could play is fostering some thoughts about partnerships among communities and the county and those funding streams. I have a lot of state agency experience where we dealt with a lot of insular agencies that weren't willing to share. And I was put on some task force both in Connecticut and Massachusetts where we created silos of service for like human services, technology, human resources, where we kind of combined the capacity of the agencies and actually had greater strength and depth. And it looks to me like that piece is missing. I think I have some experience there that I could bring to that discussion. I think the other piece is advocacy for Orleans and making sure you're at the table and your voice is heard. Clearly attendance, if you're not there, then other people are gonna get that piece of the pie. So I would be fairly diligent about attendance. The other subcommittee that I found an interest in was their public service committee. In Pennsylvania, I had a lot of experience with county government and obviously much stronger and much more of a footprint than exists in Massachusetts. But clearly they were able to provide services in a broader kind of context across the county to the municipalities by partnerships. So, again, would kind of stress that piece of looking at that. And then the other thing I kind of thought about is, we might be coming into a period of time where budgets are going to be restricted. We could actually be looking at retrenchment in budgets. So sometimes that forces people to look at collaborative efforts, and I think I kind of have the background where I could be of value and maybe bring that to the table of the assembly. I've looked at some of the the minutes and some of the the meetings, and it seems to me that they could use some more kind of focus on what the towns, need. The communication piece, as John said, I think is important. I don't recall any kind of interface with the select board around kind of that role, for the times that I've watched or, looked at agendas. So I think it would be critically important to kind of cement that relationship and have a regular opportunity for communication. So that's kind of, I know you've got a busy night, so I will end there if there's any questions.
Questions for Peter?
I think you just answered my
Yeah,
question.
yeah,
to John, right?
you
So
wove it right in,
so
both of your
I'm all set.
questions. Great,
Right? Thank you.
great. Thank you
Thank
both.
you, Peter.
Just so the public understands, this is a temporary position. There's an election that we will all be voting between these two candidates because they've already pulled papers, both of them. And so this is a short to fill a vacancy that would end in January when the new term begins. Just so you understand, what we are deciding tonight is separate from the election that we will all be going through in November. Gentlemen, how would you like to proceed? Because this is a bounty of talent and skill set.
Madam Chair, I just want to say one thing too, and we did also receive, at least I saw anyway, 2 written support
Yes.
letters that came in support of Peter, and I have to thank both individuals for coming forward, because I've known John a long time, and, he is what he is. He's solid. I learned so much from him when he was at the Select Board. In fact, I try to always follow kind of how he ran things, and I learned an awful lot. Peter, on the other hand, by virtue of this, your resume is outstanding in terms of your qualifications, the background, and I have to say, being the liaison to Finance Committee, now I see why. Sometimes you sit there and say very little, but you ask 1 or 2 questions, and you get right to the heart of thing. And I have to say, to my board, I actually, in looking at one of the support letters, it said Peter would actually, by taking this, leave FinCom. And it bothers me. I really don't want to lose you on the Finance Committee. And, I think you bring such incredible experience and skill to the town that I think through collaborative efforts, should we vote for Mr. Fuller, I think we could continue to do well for the town as opposed to a net loss. I think,
Unless the voters put him there in January, so we'll see.
understood.
Yes. So was there a motion in there? Or just a comment?
It was just commenting.
Okay. I'm entertaining nominations, gentlemen.
Just to discuss that both candidates are exceptional, and echo what Kevin said, and I've worked with both of them on committees and learned a lot from them, so thank you for both stepping up. But I would make a motion to nominate John Fuller.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have discussion?
I'll need to say, again, thank you both
Yes.
for your leadership contributions. We all learn from you, and keep it up.
Well, it's like Solomon splitting the baby here. I think that, and I'm grateful for your point, Kevin. Any other discussion? Okay, let's vote. Kevin?
Hi, Kevin Galligan.
I'm Michael Herman.
I'm F. Runyon.
Hi, Mark Matheson.
And I, Andrea Reed. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay, moving
So
right
we'll
along.
prepare the letter. It has to be sent to the county within 21 days, so obviously we're within that time frame. So I'll put a letter together tomorrow advising the county of the board's vote this evening, and then I think John would be sworn in and be able to serve.
Excellent. Moving on to the poll hearing. And I need to read an announcement. On Wednesday, July 20th at 6 o'clock in the Nauset Meeting Room of the Orleans Town Hall at 19 School Road, we are in a public hearing on the following petition submitted by NSTAR Electric Company, doing business as Eversource Energy, requesting permission to locate underground cables, conduits, and manholes, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures in, under, along, and across the following public ways, or way, 6 Collins Lane. John, do I need to read all of the graphic abbreviations?
I think you should just read what's in the legal ad itself. So,
I thought that's what I was reading. Wherefore it prays that?
yeah, that's it.
Okay. Wherefore it prays that after due notice and hearing is provided by law, it be granted a location for and permission to install and maintain underground cables, conduits, and manholes, together with such sustaining and protecting fixtures as it may find necessary. Said underground cables, conduits, and manholes to be installed in accordance with the plan filed herewith marked VCNE Inc., Plan Number 7539075, dated June 22nd, 2022. All interested parties, please attend now, in person or remotely via Zoom. And that information is available on the town website. If you want to dial in, it's 646-558-8656. And copies of the sketches have been on view in Town Hall. That's it.
So I think Eversource is on Zoom this evening.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. My name is Marissa Jackson. I am part of the Rights and Permits Department at Eversource. And the purpose of our petition this evening is to request new underground service, and that would be provided to 6 Collins Lane. How we would address this request we would go from the closest existing pole along Collins Lane, which is 39 over P6, run 45 feet of conduit under the town road to a customer-installed handhole, and make connections and provide that underground for them. So with that, I'd be happy to address any questions.
Anybody else here to speak to this? Tom?
Yeah, Tom needs to address the 2 different versions in your packet,
Okay.
2 different plans. And Eversource, have you seen the revised plan?
Probably not.
Probably not? You didn't send it to them?
No.
I'm sorry, I have not. I was
Okay.
not made aware of
No,
that.
she's not.
All right.
Hi, good evening. Tom Daly, Director of Public Works. Hi, Marissa. So generally,
Hi,
we don't have
Tom.
any.
Thank you.
We don't have any issue, with this application. We're just asking for a couple of minor modifications, okay? So did you guys take a close look at the plan and the property line that runs across the front of the property?
On page 30 in our packet.
Yeah, it's kind of an odd situation. The property line issue's a little odd. I don't know if anyone's been out there and looked at it. But anyway, we basically have 2 comments, and it's in relation to the water, right? So the proposed location for where you cross the street in your handhole is actually exactly where the water service is,
Oh, wow.
okay? So one of the things we ask, and it's in Todd's thing, but to keep it simple, we ask that the new handhole and perpendicular crossing across the street be no closer than 5 feet to the water service, the existing water service, okay? And then the other thing we ask is, the plan shows you, running along the edge of the road, the edge of the pavement. And we just ask that you move it over a few feet and get it on, the loom on the edge of the road. So where you're running that 45 feet, just slide it over a few feet and run off the edge so you're disturbing less pavement. And then last but not least, just cross the water main perpendicular, which I think shows, but just to make sure we're crossing perpendicular. And last is the usual comment, you still need to get a street opening permit from us, but once you get this, that's standard. And if you can revise the plan, if the board votes this with those conditions, just tweak the plan and then we'll issue a street opening permit.
Tom, so are those comments seem to me reflected in your comments on page 31?
I don't.
Are there additional?
Well, Todd had, did you get Todd?
The water department
Yeah.
comments are there, 5 feet of separation.
Yeah, you
from
got it.
existing water and from existing water service, main and service. A new electrical line should pass over the water main at a right angle.
And I had something in
And
there.
the other thing is, Tom put in to approve as revised.
Right.
The revision to the attached sketch A1, keep off the edge of the pavement, cut only perpendicular to the road, street opening permit required.
I just want to make sure
Yeah.
this is in writing and everybody's on the same page.
I think what you're doing is approving both A1 and the addition on A2, which is the water main. So you incorporate these into your vote.
Yeah.
We'll convey these to Eversource so that everybody has copies. They'll submit a revised plan. They'll get the street opening permit, and everybody will be on the same page for what exactly is being proposed and what's been approved.
Discussion?
Does this sound clear and right to Eversource? As I want to make sure, as we are granting public rights to a utility, this is pretty important we get this right. So if we just say we're approving with these revisions, is it described clear enough for you to accept?
Absolutely, thank you for asking. What I would need would be this in writing, and when I receive my signed documentation, if you could just include that, and it will be as a conditioned approval. And what I will do is address with the contractor prior to any digging, and as well as management.
Okay, so we have it in writing, we have the sketch plans that show the modification. We'll send you everything
Perfect.
attached so that you'll know exactly what the work is and what the conditions are.
Matt?
Absolutely, thank you very much. I'll certainly have this addressed prior to anyone going out to the location.
Yeah, so Tom, I'm going to ask you this question because Collins Lane is a new enough subdivision that I suspect that the road needed to be laid out.
It is laid out.
This sketch doesn't show the edge of the layout, though, right?
It does close enough. If you, I don't know if you're looking at.
Is it the blue line?
Yeah, okay, yes. It would be,
You're an
hold on
18.
a second. It could be the
You're an
orange,
18.
it could be the narrow orange line between the blue and the gray pavement. That's how I'm interpreting it. But there is room. There is room within the layout to go off the pavement. I mean, it could be the blue line. It actually does look, you're probably right, it probably is the blue line. But the blue line looks like, just like more of a sketch.
Yeah, the
But
blue line actually is shown as the property line, so,
Yeah.
you know, I'm assuming that's where it ends.
This is
mean,
how
we-
mistakes happen.
We-
I'm not
We're okay, we're okay,
comfortable.
we're okay. We got I know I got a 40-foot layout out there.
Okay.
You know, so if they just put it off the edge of the pavement, I'm fine. And we should be within the layout, I don't have any
Right.
concern.
Right, so that was really what I was getting at, though, is that this is one of the roads where we would have the opportunity to make it wider sometime in the future if we chose to. And what we're approving here, would that have any impact on any future widenings?
I
that-
wouldn't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, because once it's in, you know, we widened it and put a sidewalk on it or whatever,
Right.
we'd be over it and I wouldn't have any, because there's no handhold on that side, I wouldn't have an issue with it.
Good question.
And my last question is, since this is a poll hearing, are there any polls involved?
Well, there's an existing one, that's where they're gonna take the service off of.
And is there going to be any doubling up of any poles in this project?
It's all
This is
underground.
Underground.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
underground.
Okay.
This is what you want them to do.
That's right. That's right.
There's no new pole.
Wherever
I know.
possible.
No
Right.
new polls.
Madam Chair, I would
Yes,
make a
please.
motion that we approve Star Electric Companies and Verizon, because they jointly own the pole, petition to install 45 feet plus or minus of one 3-inch conduit from the proposed handhold 39/PH6B to customer-installed handhold 39/PH6BA with the edits as noted by Mr. Daly and the Water Department and the Town Administrator.
Yeah. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Marissa, can we get you back for the double pole removals all over town?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I did address that with the manager of maintenance and construction as well as our community liaison. Has anyone reached out to you?
No,
Tom, have you
I
had
will
anybody?
address it first thing again tomorrow.
thank you.
Have you had anybody try to coordinate anything with you?
I have not, but I need to take a moment, if I may, which is extremely important. Marissa, any influence you have on
Sure.
getting us our transformers for our wastewater pump stations?
Okay.
We're
And we still
going
haven't
on,
voted yet, that's why we're talking.
we're going online in 2 months, and we have
Okay.
no answer on our transformers.
I can certainly look into
Thank
that. I
you.
can't completely comment because I'm not familiar with this project in
My
particular.
comment is totally unfair, but anything you can
Right.
do would be highly
Holding you
appreciated.
hostage.
Right,
right now.
absolutely, thank you. And I do know there's some issues with supply currently,
Yeah.
but I will address that.
Thank you.
And
Any other
anything
discussion?
else, I'd be happy to help with.
Before we vote, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
You have your new line 500. Thank you. Thank you for well prepared and presented.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Marissa. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along to the fun part. Well, we have two fun parts tonight. We are holding tonight our annual summer informational meeting, and the purpose of this meeting is to provide non-resident taxpayers and voters an opportunity to discuss problems, policies, and our town progress. We are here to answer any of your questions tonight once the presentation is over, and we have four very remarkable and knowledgeable staff people to guide us through all kinds of changes and updates going on. I would love to introduce, I don't know, you guys have probably argued about what order you're speaking in. Brad Hinote is our assessor. Tom Daly, you just saw at the stand, our DPW director. Nate Sears runs everything natural resources, and Tavi Pruno is our long-standing library director. So welcome. I want to let you know, as the public, if you have friends who are missing the program tonight, we are going to be sending out a video of tonight's meeting with the clips marked about this meeting in particular. So, watch the meeting from 0 number on, and you don't have to sit through the whole, God knows how many hours we will be here. But that'll be shared on our town communication devices. Anything else to take this away?
No, I think that you covered it.
Great. So who's going
Why
first?
don't we go on the order of the list? So Brad, do you want to go first?
I'll go first.
I know you drew straws and you
I
lost.
have very
so-
little of any fun to say.
But you could have worn a fancy hat, Brad.
I could have. Hang on.
Oh, you have a show, right? New slides, Brad?
Yes, ma'am. Uh-oh. Which one?
So Brad, I think you got to come around the front.
I had it on earlier.
Did you?
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want to run the IT department?
Wow. Sorry. Can we start over?
She's a tech goddess. It's getting.
I tell you, went right to her head.
You're welcome.
My jacket.
We're ready, madam. I'll roll along.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name's Brad Hinote. I'm the town assessor here in Orleans, and I've been asked to open our summer informational meeting with a quick look at the real estate market and kind of possible implications on your taxes. So all the fun that all my successors are going to talk about, I have none of it. None whatsoever. I'll start by taking a quick peek at the real estate market, not right now, but from last year. Why would I do this? Well, as we sit here this evening, we're 20 days into fiscal year 2023. Over the next 2 months, myself and our valuation consultant will begin the rigorous process of analyzing all the market activity that took place in 2021. These analyses that we will go through will provide us with the insights we need to adjust your property's assessed values for fiscal 2023. We do that in preparation for setting our tax rate at the end of the year. What I'll talk about here, there's numbers up there, but what I'm going through here is preliminary right now. We'll be solidifying these things over the next couple months as we do our analyses. So just at the basic level, our single-family home median sale price for single-family homes is up 26% from last year at $951,000. Median sale price for a condo up 18%, $353,900. Now, these figures are higher than, but slightly, just pretty close to in line with how the county's doing right now. Median, the county's up 19% for both categories. So price-wise, everything is up. Prices are just going up. On the other hand, last year, sales of single-family homes dropped. Now, 2020 was a historical year for sales for properties moving, so we expected a decrease. Condos, however, actually went up 11%. I think this is because as single-family home prices shot up, condos began to stick out as one of the last more reasonably priced real estate options we had here in town. Now, what does that mean for your property value? Well, as I said before, these sale prices help us set everyone's values for this fiscal year. According to Mass General Law, I'm required to assess at full and fair cash valuation. Department of Revenue, who looks over everything we do, interprets that to mean 100% of market value. So by comparing the sale prices of these properties that have sold with their FY22 assessed values, doing a lot of different permutations on what we have, I'm able to come up with what we need to adjust. Basic surface level analysis shows that compared to last year's values, we're at about 80% of market value. Now, I should qualify that. That means, while that does mean just about every property that's not under construction in town will expect to see their property value go up this fiscal year. I cannot stress this enough. That does not mean everybody goes up 20%. Before a single value changes in this town, we conduct hundreds of models and sales analyses to get at, the purpose of them is to get into the minds of the people who bought properties and figure out what characteristics are you paying for. We keep data for every conceivable property characteristic that can be. By modeling and readjusting for every one of those factors, that's how we're able to determine where we have to adjust and at what level. We hope this takes a while because this town is not uniform. On any given street in this town, you'll find 8 different housing styles of different ages, different levels of renovation, different lot sizes. It takes a while to try to sort all of it. So hopefully by the end of September, we'll have a certified set of values, and I'll be able to tell you what the median increase looks like. Now I'll take a few minutes to talk about where we're at right now. So we're only 6 months into the year, so we only have data through June. Median sale price for a single-family home just through June, this is compared to June of last year, is up another 25% to $1.2 million. For a condo, that's up 15% to $390,000. Now, just to put a little perspective on how crazy that is, if I was standing here 5 years ago tonight talking about June of 2017, that median sale price would be $600,000. So that's double. Even accounting for inflation, which I think I looked this morning, it was at about 13% currency inflation. Between 2017 and now, that's still a 77% increase in the median sale price of a single-family home. And just to put a cherry on top of that, I can tell you what those two properties are. The $1.2 million property is a 40-year-old Cape off of Skakit Beach Road, what I call MNR condition, maintained, not renovated. The nice thing going forward is it has a wonderful view of Namskakit Marsh. Other than that, the house is fairly basic. For the condo, that $390,000 was paid for a 2-bedroom, 1,100 square foot condo garden unit in Old Colony Way. So that's the world we're living in right now. So once again, Orleans, the trends in Orleans are holding up, are the same as they are countywide. 32%, prices are up, numbers of sales are down. Sales and listings are down 32% here in town, 15% across the county. 20% across the county. So what we're seeing is an increasingly shrinking pool of available properties and increasingly fierce competition to get at them. And this year in particular, we have climbing interest, especially the back half of the year, we have climbing interest rates and economic uncertainty that are really only exacerbating the issue. High prices and high interest rates are driving prospective buyers out of the market completely. Meanwhile, someone who's trying to sell their home right now to take advantage of these prices is likely to find themselves in a position where they can't afford to get into something of a similar quality than what they just sold. So again, this is only 6 months of data. We don't know what the rest of the year is going to look like, but a year from now, I'll probably be back here to tell you how that went. But that's just to give you an idea of where we are right now. So my last thing I'll talk about is how does this impact your tax bills? I'll start off by pointing out that for this fiscal year, we haven't set the levy yet, so it's preliminary to try to put numbers on any of it. What I will talk about is how taxes shaped up last year, because the situation we were in last year could apply again this year, and I can't stress could strongly enough. Now, a couple years ago, the board asked me to put together a comparison for Orleans. How do we stack up against other towns in Massachusetts? How do we stack up against other towns similar to ours? In terms of valuations, in terms of taxes that we pay, all that kind of stuff. To sum all of that research up in kind of a one-sentence way, we are higher on the value scale compared to in Massachusetts, about in the middle of the pack for taxes. 351 communities, we're slightly above the midway. We're in the middle quadrant for taxes that we pay, that folks pay. When you compare us to similar towns like ours, and again, I had to really narrow down the sample of what is similar to us. So think waterfront, small population, busy in the summer. So locally, think Eastham and Chatham. Off Cape, think Mattapoisett, Marion. On Cape, further out, think Manchester by the Sea, Raleigh. These are communities with relatively similar characteristics to us. Our placements hold up. High on the value end, middle of the pack on the taxes we pay. So your tax bill is the short version of an equation, really, that just compares two numbers, total valuation and the voter-approved tax levy. Your share, your tax bill is, your share of that levy is directly proportional to your share of the town's valuation. Last year, we found ourselves in a situation where our values increased dramatically in comparison to what we were spending. So our median, the average residential tax bill went up just 1% last year, just over 1%, $5,900. By comparison, the prior 5 to 6 years, I only did the math out to 6 years, but we were seeing relative, consistent 5 to that 15% increase was a big one in 19 when we took a lot of debt on. Why did that happen? Because again, our 10% town value increase really negated didn't negate, but really served to push against how much the increased spending we did, which wasn't that much. It's too early to know because I don't know what the levy's going to be this year yet. But if values go up similarly, which is entirely likely, we may find ourselves in a similar situation with a lower tax increase, probably not 1%, but again, too early to say for sure, but I think that's what we could be looking at. And that's all the depressing news I have. If there's any questions at all, I'd be happy to try to answer them for you.
Actually, I would love to let everybody present, and then we'll take questions for everybody at the end, if that works.
Absolutely.
Just to keep the flow. Great.
Now for the fun stuff.
I'm Bailey.
That was actually, I'm a lot more boring than Brad, that's for sure.
You have no PowerPoint, Tom.
I didn't do PowerPoint.
Great.
He's lost too.
You know, I'm just gonna talk. As long as I go ahead of Tavi. Whoever goes behind Tavi, it's a loser.
Put Tavi last because you can't top Tavi.
Exactly, you can never top Tavi. He's much more fun. Anyway, some of you guys have heard me recently in my quarterly report on some projects. I do have some updates, but I think it's important for this particular meeting that I repeat a few things, so I apologize to the board. I'm going to hit, projects, really construction projects primarily is what we got going on. So the new parking lot at 223 Beach Road is substantially completed at this point. We do have the kiosks and the license plate recognition that'll be going in this summer. We are way ahead of schedule. It wasn't supposed to be done until the fall. We do have some supply chain issues down there. Part of that project was turning on the bathrooms at the beach admin, which happened the Friday before 4th of July weekend. And we told the contractor, whatever happens, you have to have those bathrooms running for 4th of July weekend. And they pulled it off. I mean, right to the wire, they pulled it off, which was great. We do have, some issues. One of the things slowing us down right now is Eversource. Don't know when they're going to connect the power up to the new toll booth up at the top of the hill and things. So they had a little funky thing with their contractor who they thought they were going to use to do the work. Doesn't do like molding underneath, and that was the condition. Whatever, it's a slowdown, but there's no crisis getting this project wrapped up. So we're in good shape. Project's gone very well. The quality of the work is there. If you drive by, ignore the weeds. Just please ignore the weeds. The contractor knows they planted grass too late. They're going to be coming back in the fall and knocking down the weeds and cleaning it up and regrassing, etc. Another project, the Cape Cod Rail Trail Connector Project, which was funded via CPC. This is a connection from the Cape Cod Rail Trail. It runs from the rail trail over to Overland Way. which will connect people to the other side of Route 6. So we're finalizing design right now. We'll go out to bid this summer, and we should have construction in the fall. So, nice little project, nice extra amenity in town. Pavement management, highway work, we did a bunch of chip sealing in May, Cedar Lane Road, Cross Road, Winslow Drive, Winslow Way. But I do want to throw out these names of streets that are coming for FY '23. So what I'm going to name here, we're going to go out and do a whole bunch of patching this fall and chip seal them in the spring. So this is what I got, nice long list. Samoset Road, Great Oak Road from Maple to Brick Hill. Now, we're not doing all of it because we have sewer going down Great Oak as part of Phase 2, so from Maple down to Maine. So Great Oak, Maple to Brick Hill, Freeman Lane, Doan Road, after the stormwater project on Doan Road, Longview Drive, Baywood Drive, Northwood Drive, Country Crossing, Countryside Drive, Meeting House Road, except for the little bit down near Maine that'll be redone with some sewer. There's a little bit down at Maine, but most of all, Meeting House will be done. And the new Lonnie's Lane, that little bit between Monument and Cascade-Gansett. I drove over that a few weeks ago, and I'm like, we need to do something before we lose it. So anyway, those are the roads for maintenance next year. Main Street, we're in design, so the reconstruction, this is a big project. As I said at my last quarterly, probably the last big one I'll probably, road-wise, I'll be involved with, plus Old Colony, but I'll get moving on here in my career. So Main Street from Academy Place to Beach Road. So, new sidewalks, intersections, big public process, we'll go through it all. Right now, we had to do some added survey. We took the survey work from the sewer job, Phase 2 Meeting House, but we had to add some to it. So we're doing the survey, should get those plans, we can start the concept design on that. That'll be a big job. The 2839 roundabout, DOT has awarded the project. I believe Lynch is the contractor. Work shall begin in the fall. The job's estimated at $5.9 million. The schedule on that, start in the fall, substantially complete, say, by next summer, but they'll be cleaning some stuff up in the following fall, after the summer. Natural resources, got a few things going on. I'm going to read the script, but I got a couple other things to add. So I've talked about this, the Rock Harbor Commercial Bulkhead, we got a grant, was it 2019, I think we got the grant, $147,000 from Seaport Economic Council for design and permitting. It's just a long process, and we did have COVID did slow us down. We have had a prolonged public participation, the multiple meetings with the user groups. The project has grown, but I think it's grown in a good way, because really answering the response from the user groups and what they need. It's going to be a really nice project if it ultimately gets built. We've added scope, which adds time, right? So the final design hopefully be done next May. Bid award August of '23, and hopefully in the notice to proceed in November of '23. So, you're probably looking at, definitely into the spring of '24 for construction. But we've added a few things. We feel the need that, we've got the underground tanks there behind the commercial bulkhead, so we've applied for a grant to get them above ground, put all new tanks in and new dispensers, et cetera. So we're waiting to hear on that grant. And one of the other and we will be pursuing a grant from the Seaport Economic Council to help us with the construction of that bulkhead. I mean, they'll do up to $1 million. This is a large job. It'll be much more than that. But still, $1 million is $1 million. But we did get a grant, and I didn't put it in here because I think it just came in. We got $162,000 plus or minus, I just wrote it down, grant, again, from Seaport Economic Council. We just got it for dredging work, which is scheduled in, are we dredging? Next year? Next year. Fall? Winter. Fall, winter coming. Okay. So we've got a grant to help us out with that. So a lot of good stuff there. The sewer project, I know you get a frequent sewer update, but I just wanted to touch on it for the public. So my usual podium public service announcement, as of November last year, we are accepting sewer connection permit applications for Phase 1 downtown sewer area, so please don't wait. You can reach out to me at DPW, you can, go online, you can reach out, AECOM, anyone who's involved in sewer, you can reach out to Kevin. Kevin will tell you how to get hooked up, he'll give you my number, and that's fine. It's all good, but we're encouraging people to hire an engineer now and get pre-approved and get the contractors lined up before the rush, okay? Because it's gonna be a rush. Hundreds of connections, and there's only so many engineers and only so many contractors, and it all needs to be done in a year. I'll go back on that a little bit. Roads that'll be paved, additional roads being paved this fall, but I call them wastewater project, roads that are going to be paved because of wastewater. So Old County Road still has to be done, Cottage Street has to be done, Canal Road, and then the portions of 6A and 28 that aren't done yet that still have trenches are all going to get redone this fall. We anticipate that all work, Phase 1, downtown system, the plant and the collection will be substantially complete by October 12th. That's our current date. We are dealing with some supply chain, like last-minute supply chain issues. A few of them a little scary, actually, when it comes to the schedule of the project. But based on a meeting I had today with AECom, they're working with DLC, a contractor at the plant, and Robert Auer, a collection system contractor, and they're working on some workarounds. So that could potentially work. So fingers crossed that we're ready to go October 12th. So that, what I would think is mid-October, the Board of Health at that point, hopefully would be ready to send out a letter to all residents in the Phase 1 area, notifying them the requirement that they need to tie in within a year. Okay, last thing I got, Recreation Department. We've got a very robust summer playground program going on right now. We've got 174 kids involved from K to middle school. That will end August 12th. Swim instruction, 136 registered participants, a lot of people. And again, that will end August 12th. We've got Wednesday night basketball clinic, grades 3 to 5. And we've got Saturday soccer, K to 5. Those will end August 13th. And we have our usual early bird fitness running Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 7 to 8 in the morning, which is ongoing. So just a touch on that. If anyone's interested in joining these programs, just reach out to us through the website, plenty of information, or through Alan Harrison, our director, or me, or whatever, and we'll get you hooked up. So that's what I got.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Nate.
Evening, folks. Nathan Sears, Natural Resource Manager. I think if you'd ask most people why they treasure Orleans so much, it would be because of the proximity to the pristine waters and the breathtaking shoreline. It's a unique place, right? We're surrounded by water, and we have such limited access. There's 29 town landings in town. We've updated our website. There's a map for those landings online with a legend that every landing's so unique. So there's a legend there. It tells you kind of what there is for parking, what kind of access is provided at these locations. If you do access the shoreline via town property, please make sure you respect private property, acknowledge all the signs that are on the shoreline, and pick up after your dogs. It's a courtesy if people allow you to walk along private shoreline. And certainly I want people to realize that that's a privilege that can be taken away. Shellfishing, Nauset Estuary right now is closed to shellfishing the entirety of the estuary. It's that time of year where we can have algal blooms. This isn't red tide. It's actually Dinophysis, which is, it's not PSP, which is red tide. This is DSP, which is diuretic shellfish poisoning. And I think you can assume by the name that you don't want to get it. So hopefully it's going to only last 2 or 3 more weeks. My department sends weekly samples out to the Division of Marine Fisheries. And as soon as we get a couple tests cleared, we'll be reopening. Generally, these closures are precautionary with the division, and let's just hope that's the case in this situation. If you want to do something, well, I should say Pleasant Bay is still open to shellfishing. If you want an updated map, you can go on the Town of Orleans website under Shellfish Harbor Master and check the maps for any updated information that you need before you go out. If you want to do something fun with the family, blue crabs are in thick in Pleasant Bay and most of the terminal ponds. You don't need a license to go blue crabbing. We do have a link on the website under the Harbor Master Shellfish Department that gives you the state regulations for blue crabbing. We have about 14, the town leases about 14 aquaculture farms in town. These folks are growing world-renowned quality shellfish. I think it's important for the community to support those farmers, and when they go to the market, request Orleans, cohogs, and oysters. If you want to go recreational fishing, now's the time to do it. If you want to cast off the shoreline, Nauset Beach, there's loads and loads of striped bass that just moved in. They're good size. There's bluefish mixed in with them. If you want to go offshore, we have charter boats down at Rock Harbor. Take advantage of those captains who have been fishing their whole lives and very knowledgeable. We also have other charter boats that trailer and give you access to other locations besides Cape Cod Bay. So just get on the internet and find out who's going where and have some fun. We have approximately 1,200 moorings in town. Just like everything in town, there's just like the shorefront and the waters, they're under high demand. There's wait lists in place. They average probably around 12 to 15 years, maybe longer, to get a mooring in town in one of the town mooring fields. If you have shorefront property or association rights, deeded rights, that type of stuff, reach out to me and we can discuss and look at deeds and maybe you'll be eligible for a mooring. If you are into power boating, this time of year, we asked you to abide all the no-wake areas. Orleans has protected waters, and we share them with many user groups. Oftentimes, there's conflicts with the boating channel. If you want to have an idea of kind of what a boating channel is like, it's like almost like the interstate, right? A lot of these boats that are in the boating channel, they're not at their destination. Some of these boats are going 10, 15, 20, 30 miles offshore fishing, going to other places. If you're in smaller vessels like kayaks or stand-up paddle boards, you have to respect the fact that that boating channel exists and avoid it, right? Those boats are required to be in the channel often because they need the deeper water for draft. And you don't if you're in a kayak or a stand-up paddleboard. So stay outside of the channel, and if you do need to cross the boating channel, cross at a 90-degree angle, wait for a time when there's no boats coming, and cross safely. It's somewhat akin to like trying to ride a bicycle down Route 6, right? You're not going to weave in and out of the cars coming and going. You're going to stay out of the way. If you have kayaks, or stand-up paddleboards or small vessels, make sure you put contact information on there, your name, your phone number, so that if we do find kayaks adrift or stand-up paddleboards, we have to assume there's a person in the water and perform a search. And if there's a phone number on there, it makes our lives a lot easier. We can just contact and save a lot of assets from going out on the water. The public beaches, Nauset and Skakit, we have lifeguards from 9 to 5. There's certainly the time of year when the sharks have moved in. You're still able to recreate safely in the water if you act responsibly. What you want to do is you want to stay on sandbars. You don't really want to go deeper than waist deep. You want the water quality to be optimal. You want people on the beach watching while you're in the water. Certainly, if you're going to the protected areas where the lifeguards are, listen to my staff and what they tell you to do. We have some of the best lifeguards in the region, and they're highly trained to deal with the shark issues and to educate people. So ask them questions if you have questions. We have the food trucks down at Nauset Beach. Take advantage of them. They're great. We have 3 trucks down there now, 1 ice cream truck, 2 food trucks. They start serving around 10 o'clock till 5 p.m. There's concerts down there, free concerts every Monday. From here till August 29th. Food trucks are often down at those concerts. The attendance has been remarkable. There's some nights there's 100, 200 people down at these concerts. And the gazebo's back, so the bands are playing under the gazebo again, which is great to see. There's also a retail store down at Nauset, so you can get all your Nauset gear. The Overstand program, the north side has stayed open. We've had some challenges with the profile of the beach. And obviously, it's the shorebird time of year, so we at one point had reduced it to almost less than half a mile. But it's the base of Calanans Pass that's the issue. There's very soft sand there, and there's not much beach out in front of it. So I have to urge everybody to air down, and sometimes 15 PSI isn't enough. It's like 12 PSI so that you can, it's not getting onto the beach, it's getting off the beach. So we've been dealing with so many vehicles stuck at the bottom of Calanans Pass, and sometimes that can lead to public safety issues where we can't get vehicles off, and it leads to traffic jams. So we've been doing spot checks. We're having our staff at the top of Calanans, when we're managing the pass, do spot air pressure checks, asking for people to check their tire pressure, and just please be understanding and patient with staff, because we do have a significant problem down there. We understand lots of people have been driving on the beach for their entire lives and know how to do it, but this is a different situation than we've ever had on the north side, at least when I've been there. So please air down. The south side, we closed at the beginning of June, and we are scheduling a tentative opening the first week of August with an HCP. HCP means that we have a special permit from the state. It's a habitat conservation plan. It requires you to have a passenger to the vehicle over the age of 16 walk in front of your vehicle by unfledged plover chicks. To put it in perspective, if we didn't have that permit in hand, we wouldn't be likely opening the south side until the end of August, almost September. So this permit's going to really come in handy this year, but it likely will run for 20-plus days with that permit in place with those limitations on access. So there's 3 access windows, and you can access and egress during those. Make sure that you have a copy of the procedures and protocols that came along with your permit. There's a video on the town website. Make sure you watch it. There's a lot of moving parts to this permit, and we can't jeopardize it by having people not follow the rules. So it's aggressively staffed, but we're going to get you guys out on the beach, and hopefully the greenheads will be gone by the time we get out there, because they're pretty bad right now. That's all I got.
Thanks, Nate.
Yeah, that was great.
Thank you.
Avi?
Are you gonna top that, Tavi? That was pretty fun.
The greenheads are top that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Tavi Prugnell, Library Director, and it's wonderful to be here this evening and to be able to share with you all of the great programs and events going on this summer. This is the first summer in 2 years that we have so many of these events. Some of them, because of their popularity, we're having back again. Some of them are very new. But I just want to go over some of the traditional services we have for anyone listening in. So we have over 55,000 books in the collection, 128 different magazine and periodical subscriptions, almost 5,000 audiobooks and 6,000 DVDs, 50 research databases available, and over 50,000 ebooks and e-audiobooks available, all free for your use with your library card. We have 24/7 Wi-Fi access, and as we speak right now, it's being updated and the signal is being extended into the parking lots and strengthened. We have 6 public access computers for internet use, word processing, emailing. We also have, and again, we haven't had this in 2 years, and I'm very happy to be able to let you know about this. We have a new art exhibit every month in the Marion Crane Gallery that features talented local artists' work on display in various media. And although we do have extensive programming throughout the year, provided mainly by the Friends through their Stellar Lifetime Learning program, the summer is when we have our greatest intergenerational variety. So on Wednesday, July 27th, and this is the first time we're having a program like this, this is jazz from New York City's Lincoln Center. This concert is part of the Jazz at Lincoln Center's On the Road initiative. So this program develops, maintains, and cultivates a network of young jazz musicians performing in trios, quartets, and quintets to tour throughout the U.S. It's all curated and supported by the Jazz at Lincoln Center program, and it enables high-quality jazz performances and engagement within the community in a variety of spaces and places, seeking diversity in audiences and locations. And Snow Library is collaborating with the Cape Symphony to bring this. On Wednesday, August 3rd, at 6 p.m., we have Paul and Rosalie DiCrescenzo. They're martial arts instructors, and they will present an introduction to Tai Chi program where they will focus on breathing, movement, and meditation exercises. On Wednesday, August 10th, we have author Sharon Dunn coming in at 5:30. She will discuss her book, An Island in Time, exploring Bound Brook Island, its lands and peoples, its past and present. There will be a book selling and a signing at the event after her PowerPoint presentation, and she will also be reading excerpts of her book as well. And there's plenty to excite and entertain children all summer long, brought to us by our Youth Services librarian, Ann Foster. The summer reading program theme this year is Oceans of Possibilities, and it encourages young readers by having them keep a logbook of all that they read, and for every 3 hours of reading they do, they're eligible for receiving a prize every week. And this summer reading program began on July 6th with the traditional ice cream party. We had 75 visitors coming in and enjoying ice cream sundaes. As you might expect, every year we always have more takers for the ice cream sundaes and less for the reading program, but we're aware that we know that. We're fine with that. But at least 40 children signed up for the program. And you can participate in this program at any time up until the end of the program on August the 12th, so it's never too late to join. Tomorrow, on July 21st, we have at 10:30 Amazing Animal Ambassadors. This is a live animal program. We usually have one every year because they're so popular. And this program promises to educate and inspire, developing an interest in appreciation in the wonders of wildlife and their natural habitats. Those in attendance will have a chance to see all different types of animals, from the commonplace to the rare. On Tuesday, July 26th at 4, we have Jungle Jim, who will be performing his Camp Balloon Magic Show. And those in attendance, who are called campers, have a chance to test their skills by playing balloon sports, learning balloon magic tricks, and the highlight of the performance is a giant life-size 6-foot balloon. On Thursday, July 28th at 10:30, attendees will have a hands-on craft program to learn how to decorate their own canvas bags with painted fish designs. You'll hear me mentioning different nautical themes because of the Ocean of Possibilities theme. On Wednesday, August 3rd, we have a program specifically for children ages 7 through 14 called Martial Arts for Young Dragons, which teaches the basics of Kung Fu. Now, registration is required for this program because our instructors would like to have an idea of how many people are going to be attending, so they will tailor the program for the size of the people coming. The next day, on Thursday, August 4th, we have an origami and folk tales program by Motoko, and she is a Parents' Choice award-winning storyteller. Audience members will learn how to make origami animals and folding paper tales in which the same piece of paper is transformed multiple times to represent all sorts of different characters and objects. It's really quite an incredible and spectacular program. We've had her here before and can't wait to experience the program again. Motoko will also explain the history and the cultural symbolism of origami, and participants will be able to make and take home their own original origami creations. On Tuesday, August 9th, we have an all-day outdoor ocean scavenger hunt in which participants will receive clues to help find missing aquatic creatures, pictures of, images of aquatic creatures, not the real ones, that have been hidden all around the library property. It's an outdoor program. And on Thursday, August 11th, you can learn how to play the ukulele with Julie Stepanek. You can either bring your own ukulele or she will provide ukuleles herself. Attendees will be taught how to hold, tune, strum, fret, read chords, and play songs on the ukulele. There is registration required for this program because we'll need to know how many ukuleles to provide. Aside from all these activities that are part of the traditional summer reading program, we had a program that began on July 6th, and it's going to run through August 17th, called Lego Builds and Rebuilds Star Wars Microfighter Workshop. Now, these workshops are for children from kindergarten to 4th grade, led by one of our library trustees, Jamie Balliet, and assisted by Youth Services Librarian Ann Foster. And these programs will teach participants how to use the same pieces in a Lego kit to build many different creations. So, for example, you can take a starfighter and rearrange it around and it will become a sandwich shack, which is actually done. Or you can take a spaceship kit and that can become a land speeder or a robot. So participants can either bring their own Lego kit or the library will supply the Lego kit. There's registration so we can know how many kits we might need to provide people. Now, none of these really exciting programs or events would be possible without the generous financial support of the Friends of Snow Library as well as the Orleans Cultural Council, which this year provided grants for the Pitter Patter Puppet Show, which occurred on June 25th, which was a lot of fun, and also the upcoming program Motoko's Origami and Folktale Performance, and Julie Stepanik's Learning the Ukulele class. So, again, all of these programs are free to participants. There aren't registrations for most of them, just the ones I mentioned, the ones where we need to know for supplies and also seating. And so for more information on any of these programs or any of our services, please feel free to stop by the library at 67 Main Street or visit us on the web at snowlibrary.org. Thanks very much and enjoy the summer, and please attend some of our programs.
Thank you, Tom. That was
Thank you.
wonderful. Yay. Yeah, that's why that man goes last, right? Anybody here have questions for any of our presenters? Would you come to the podium? Just introduce yourself. And thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for having us. I live at 40 Freeman Lane. My name's Walter Wallach. I'm wondering about putting kayaks on public property. You need a permit, but there never is a permit available. Each year we go and we say, can we get a permit of some sort or a sticker? It's never available, so will that ever be available?
You have the men here to answer you, sir. It's a good question.
Similar to, there's somewhat of a consistent message here that we have such limited access along our shorelines with the town landings, and with the demand for storage of small vessels along the beaches, they would just be overburdened. So we put a moratorium years back on the storage of kayaks at town landings. There are some grandfathered permits, so occasionally people will see kayaks down at the end of Tonsett Landing. I think is one of the only places left where there's grandfathered permits. But we're no longer issuing them because the landings would just be overtaken by boats at this point, even if we did a limited number. So similar to a wait list for a mooring, we tell people, if you want to wait on the wait list for a mooring when your name comes up, we could talk about issuing a permit similar to what those have on those kayaks presently.
So Nate, if somebody leaves their boat there,
We would put an orange violation sticker on it, telling them to call us. There's no monetary penalty involved with that, but if they don't call us back within a matter of days, we will repossess the boat. And I have plenty of kayaks if anybody's looking for one.
There are, on this issue, there are a fair number of people who are trying to get town kayak racks in some of the landings, and that process is going on. It's been a little slow, but the effort is there. I think that we'll get probably some of them going in the next year or two, do you think?
Yeah, it's still, I would imagine there's been discussion about putting some racks on conservation properties. I think thinking outside the box a little about where there's not, as much conflict with different users. But time will tell. I have my own issues with kayaks stored at landings or on the beaches left behind, but that's time for a different discussion.
And of course, they'll probably have the same problem as with moorings, that there'll be more people who want the rack space than there is rack space available.
right?
That's the issue, right? A kayak rack, you can probably fit 8 kayaks or something, or, and then it's, the question is, if you do a lottery, do they end up in the hands of the people that really are avid kayakers that would be using them on a regular basis and using them responsibly? But like I said, we can have those conversations all day long.
I think, part of the problem too is parking. It's not just the boat in the water or on the beach.
Right.
It's, the landings tend to be at the end of a
Capacity,
small
yeah.
little country lane, and the parking is limited, which is what limits the number of moorings you can have for boats to begin
Right.
with. And so, how do you fit more cars in a parking lot that doesn't exist so that people can access the water?
Just so folks are aware, there's a process to this. It's not just Nate Sears doesn't think it's a good idea. You can come to a Shellfish Waterways meeting. We have discussions all the time about this issue. So please, ask to have it put on the agenda, and we certainly can have further conversation.
Look for openings on the committee and join it.
Get it done. Great. Any other questions for the audience, from the audience? Yes, sir, please come. That's why we're here tonight.
Hi, my name is Dan Holbrook. I'm the co-owner with my wife, sister, and brother-in-law of our family home. We're all fortunate enough to be able to live here in the summer. I guess not fortunate enough to live here in the winter. And I really appreciate you having this meeting. I've had in the last year or so interactions with all four of these gentlemen's departments. Last year, for example, I sent an email about the signage on Cottage and North Cottage Street, and literally within 8 working days, there were brand-new signs there, enlarged and improved. My jaw sort of dropped. Just last week, I solved, or a problem was solved for me by Nate Sears about my mooring permit, like solved within a couple of days. Just this afternoon out by the inlet, met 3 charming, informative, and really helpful summer interns out there looking for piping plovers. Saturday book sale at the library. If you have a book problem like so many people do, that's the place to go. Make it worse. Also, 50 years of the Cape Cod are online through Snow Library. This is, if you're interested in local history at all, you can spend a lot of time on those. And, it's always good to hear that the tax increase is going to be low. But I've been spending a lot of time this summer, really this is a fun summer activity, looking at proposed bylaws and rules and regulations about the new sewer system. I should say I'm strongly pro sewer and have been for the 35 years that it's been an issue here in town. I wonder, though, if the information that's available online, the proposed bylaw and the proposed rules and regulations, those have a date on them of 2020. And I just wonder if that is the most recent information, because if it's not, much of my work has been for naught, I'm afraid. And I would especially like to see some numbers so that we can start to estimate how much this is going to cost. I believe in the frequently asked questions document on the town's website, it gives a range of between $1,000 and $30,000, which is not really helpful. I've out of all those documents, I've generated here a list of all of the fees associated with the sewer, which is sort of a shockingly long and confusing list. But there are no possible numbers attached to any of these things, so it's impossible to figure out, is this a $75 fee or a $75,000 fee? So I would ask if it's possible to have actual numbers, and if it's not possible at this time because the project's not finished, to have some estimate that is, I guess rough would be okay, but the more accurate, the better. It would be very, very helpful to try to figure out what this is going to cost us. Thank you.
We can, do you want to partially address that, or?
One quick one.
Yeah.
Mr. Woolberg, right? Holbrook. Are you in the Phase 1 sewer service area?
Absolutely,
Okay. Cottage Street. So, Mr. Daly, could you maybe outline what we do know, like application fee, contact his engineer, at least,
Right now, which is fine.
please.
Can I chime in? So the town meeting in May adopted the sewer assessment bylaw.
Okay.
So that is now pending, we're waiting for the final approval at the state on our special act, but town meeting did approve the bylaw. So a copy of the final bylaw was in the warrant for the May town meeting, and we'll make sure that that version is what's on the website. The sewer use rules and regs were approved last October at a special town meeting. They are now in effect. The fees associated with those were approved in May as well. So both of those are now in effect. So hopefully that fills in some of the gaps of the fees that we're missing. But that's the latest information that we have, and we'll make sure the website is updated with that.
Okay, that would be good, thank you.
Yeah, may I just see the piece of, the fees you were looking at, just to make sure we're referencing the right thing? Thank you. Okay. As I suspected. So, all right, so yeah, as John said, and I'm pretty sure they are on the website, maybe in a location that you're not seeing them, but I'm happy to get you in the right direction. You just go into wastewater infrastructure, and everything should be up to date with the rules and regs. I'm not sure in the bylaw, but we should double check that, if that was on there. So, there is a lot. So we spent a lot of time writing rules and regs, you know, pre-COVID, like, you know, a year writing rules and regs. And, you know, and we're creating a utility from scratch. And, you know, a lot of effort goes into that. So, and then a lot of different scenarios go into it. You know, like a lot of these things, like, you know, so for the average homeowner who's in phase one sewer, you know, you don't have to worry about sewer improvement fee, flow offset fee, reserve capacity fee. These are for just different situations that people generally will run into. Sewer privilege fee, comp fee note, connection permit application fee. Yeah, I think it's $150, and you get up to so many gallons per day, and then it's 50 cents per gallon thereafter. The basic homeowner is going to pay $150, you know. So trying to keep it easy, but at the same time, we have to cover such a broad realm of possibilities. What if someone comes in and wants to extend the sewer? And, you know, so what if someone comes in and they're in an area that's not within the approved area, but they want to do an extension off it, and it makes sense to do an extension off it? Well, you know, the taxpayers, the people who live in that area have paid, already invested into that infrastructure. Well, now this person, you know, by right, they want to do a subdivision, whatever they want to do, they want to add to it, they haven't paid in anything yet. So these compensation fees and things like that, that's what they're for. They're for future development and things, so that everyone's paying the fair share, okay? So, I mean, being a homeowner in the phase one area, you know, you hire an engineer, there's a cost for that. You're gonna have to hire a contractor to do the actual installation, there's a cost for that. You apply, say, a $150 application fee with me, with plans, engineered plans and things like that, and there's a form, and it's all in the rules and regs, and then we review it, and then you move forward. Betterments are another issue, and I'll stop talking.
And also the size of your lot and how those costs from your.
Yeah, every
your-
lot's different.
Right.
That's the best thing to really nail it down, hire an engineer, get the process going.
Yeah.
And they'll give you a construction cost estimate based upon because every lot's different.
Septic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt, did you want to comment?
Well, I just want to say that prior to town meeting, the select board did put in a don't go away, Tom. I did ask for a simplified one-page sheet, which I'm sure is what you're talking about. And what came out of that was like a 6 or a 7-page, single-spaced, small print document. And it just seemed to be the best that could be done from the people who really think that all facts need to be presented. And so that's, I agree with you, this whole thing is much more difficult. But what I was really getting at was, there is a phone number and there is an ombudsman. And if it was me, I'm not in a sewered property, but I wouldn't be doing any of the work you're doing. I would be calling up and having somebody else do it.
And if I may, I mean, so Reggie Dunning from AECom is our ombudsman. His phone number's on the website. My phone number's there too, and people call me and I answer these questions often, happy to. you know, and the more we get the word out, the better. And we're, also the engineers, you know, they have to learn how, you know, they know what they're doing, but again, what are our specific processes and things like that, because it's all brand new. And if I may, just on, you know, look at a couple more of these fees, trench permit application, you know, it's a $50 fee, but, you know, yeah, you'll end up paying that because there will be a trench on the property, so there'll be $50 for that. And that comes in as part of the whole permit process. Then I'm happy to walk through your engineer, yourself, or your contractor through. Anyway, user charges quarterly, sewer bill, we have established this, the septage fee at this point, things like that. So a lot of this stuff has been established, and happy to explain it, because there's a lot of information.
And we also have resources like the failed septic status for loans to, right? Is that gone through yet?
Hasn't been approved yet. It's in
Okay,
the
but
works.
that, hopefully it's coming, that if you need to do a loan, that there will be resources available, because tying into the sewer counts as a failed.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, we borrowed, just put in this Title V 5 years ago.
There you go.
Any,
It's in
yeah.
great shape, would you like to buy it?
Want to talk to that?
There's something else to that, too.
So.
That's a resource, though.
The
yeah.
Board of Health, I don't know if they've adopted it yet, but basically right now, if I may be so bold, I can't really speak for them. So what the Board of Health is considering, and probably will be doing, I would think, based upon their discussions, is if you have a septic system less than 10 years old, you can ask for a waiver of the one-year connection. So let's say the letter goes out and says, okay, you know, you gotta tie in a year, and you say, well, okay, I just put mine in 5 years ago. They'll give you 5 years to get you to the 10, so you can buy yourself some time. And they're doing that to be fair to people.
Madam Chair, I am taking over for Mr. Herman as liaison to the Board of Health. The meeting is tomorrow afternoon. They are, in fact, considering exactly this regulation to adopt or maybe discuss and vote tomorrow at a future date. You're welcome to make it, but if you're not there, I will carry your comment.
It's at 2 o'clock? I think they're usually at 2.
Is it- This will be my first.
So just on that note, there are a couple moving parts here. Obviously, there's going to be the directive from the Board of Health to hook up once the service is available. So if the October midpoint of substantial completion, that's going to drive a lot of the decisions. Your betterment will be assessed following substantial completion, whether or not you are connected within that year. So the betterment starts, but you have a year to connect. So I'm pretty certain that even if you get the waiver of the 1 year, the assessment against the property for the cost of the collection system is not waived, and it's not delayed. That would become due and payable. That's going to be based on the 3-year look back of your water usage. So what I think was on the website under the draft rules and regs was a older water usage from, I don't know, 17, 18, and 19 or something. So what ends up happening is that the way the bylaw is written, once the substantial completion is reached, there's a 3-year look back. And that becomes the average, and that's how they determine the number of sewer units. So that's the method to the process that we'll go through. But the Board of Health certainly, because they have people that have new systems, they get the extension of the requirement to connect, but it's separate and apart from the betterment issue.
And if I can add too, when you do get notice of the betterment, this is not the notice to connect.
Right.
Betterment will give you an option to either pay it all up front,
Right.
or you could spread it out over a fairly long period of time.
I think we're talking up to 30 years, yeah.
I could find no mention anywhere of how much a sewer unit was. What's the charge per sewer unit? Is it $50? Is it $5,000?
I'm trying to remember if that was in the bylaw itself, or there's a method to that, but I think
Based on your water.
Tom, do you recall what the sewer unit was for the downtown?
All right, well, part of the issue is you don't know
When we
what the
get to the
betterment's gonna
final
be,
cost,
'cause
we have
don't
to
know
wait for the
final cost.
Right.
For the project, right.
We had an estimate that we were working on when we put the bylaw together. I have to get that to you. I can't recall offhand what that estimate was. But that was the average sewer unit cost for each of the downtown properties. Now, then you take that sewer unit multiplied by the number of sewer units for your average water usage, and that's how it's arrived at.
So it's not likely to be $50?
No, it's a little higher than that, yeah.
It might be $50 a month.
But there is some kind of basic hookup fee that was in the I thought it was in the $200 range.
Yeah, but what we're talking about here is how your betterment is calculated.
Right, not the betterment, that's a
nothing to
usage.
do
That was
with-
the basic usage.
Right, so we'll try to make sure what's on the website has that latest estimate, so it's easy to follow, and you don't have to scroll through 6 pages of detail. Now, the town meeting has approved it, and we're looking to substantial completion date in October. We'll be able to start to fine-tune some of the original estimates and be more realistic in what the actuals are.
Are there any other questions? I'm aware that we were supposed to start at 6:15, a different meeting, and it's 7:30. So are there any other questions? Well, thank you guys for coming. Please stay tuned in and have a happy and healthy summer. Glad you're here. All right. And thank you guys, thank you staff for coming in the Cultural
We're
Center
okay.
of Cape Cod.
The 6:15 was this meeting we were just doing.
Yes, yeah. Right, at 7:30. So I want to get Lisa and Andrew. Aren't you glad you remoted in? Yeah.
I get your newsletter all the time. I think I met you at Guston. Get my wife in the picture one time, but thank you. That newsletter.
Oh,
Plus,
thank
this is
you.
very interesting, too.
Yeah, hey,
But I
keep
wanna
coming.
put primarily my kayak at your house, if you don't mind.
You won't get very far, right?
I'll go on the lake.
Right, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Good night.
All right, I hear you're going to educate us about Growth Smart Cape Cod. And thank you
Thank
guys
you.
for attending.
Thank you for having us.
Andrew, can I just jump in? I'm supposed to be at
Sure.
the VA meeting hearing here in about 5 minutes. We're going to be up. So Andrew's going to lead the presentation, but I just wanted to thank you for getting us on the agenda and taking a minute to hear about our project. And when you see me or don't see me on the screen, it's not because Andrew and I are fighting. It's because I have another commitment that I have to go to.
Thank
Okay.
you. Yes.
So, it's perhaps a show of the strength of our partnership that the housing person's going to defer to the Enviro guy to make her pitch on this project. So, if I might, Madam Chair, I'm going to share our screen with you so that we can walk you through very quickly our presentation. I just confirm it. Can people see the screen?
Yes.
The presentation? Great. So, I'm Andrew Gottlieb, I'm the Executive Director of the Association to Preserve Cape Cod. You saw Melissa Magnotta, the CEO of Housing Assistance Corporation. So you all might be asking yourself, they're an odd couple. And, why are they working on a project together? And I think that Kevin can vouch for this, that we've APCC and HAC have worked together on a number of issues, and this project came out of a previous partnership where we worked together with some other nonprofits to provide some policy guidance to towns on some of the best ways we thought to maximize the value of some of the money that came in associated with changes to the short-term rental tax program, which Orleans has done an exemplary job of doing. And we realized in that process that while we may have things we choose to quibble about, I won't even say fight, quibble about on occasion, we share an interest as environmental advocates and housing advocates in certain common outcomes that revolve in large part around work you're already doing in Orleans around the construction and creation of wastewater infrastructure that has the potential to address with a single expenditure of a single dollar 2 major public policy objectives. That you can provide opportunities to enhance and protect the environment while also unlocking the potential for creating housing diversity and different housing types of sufficient density to make them affordable, whether they are capital A affordable subsidized or small A affordable part of a market that has a little bit more dynamic aspect to it than what we currently see Cape-wide. And so from that realization, what we did was we approached the Cape Cod Commission and the Economic Development Council, take advantage of some of the money that's generated through people's purchase of those Cape and Islands license plates, to do a project that we've called Grow Smart Cape Cod that attempts to identify those areas most well suited to additional protection, those areas most well suited to denser housing development, and identify the role of municipal infrastructure investment around wastewater treatment in achieving those two outcomes. And I'll walk you through how we got to that process and what the outcomes were. But just real quickly, in the formulation of this project, we formed an advisory committee, broadly based, people with environmental backgrounds, housing backgrounds, municipal planning, municipal finance, wastewater, housing, and the like, to give us some guidance and corrections. We looked at natural resource layers, and I'll talk about which ones those are. That was easier. We developed some housing scoring criteria to help prioritize and identify those areas that were most appropriate for housing. We applied all this, got some preliminary maps, did our best to ground truth the individual town maps with each one of the 15 towns. I'll say that we didn't get to all 15 necessarily for a variety of reasons, but the vast majority, and made corrections and adjustments to both the specifics and our scoring to come up with products that we thought were useful. And we've converted the whole thing to an online interactive map. Before we jump into the criteria, I do want to say that we present this project to you as a tool that you can use to enhance and inform the local planning that we know is already happening in the town of Orleans. This is not us coming in and saying, scrap what you're doing, we got a better way. This is a way to provide another look at the community, apply a different lens to some of the discussions that are going on. And in that regard, we hope to help inform and therefore improve some of your local planning processes. But it's not a dictate, it's not a predetermined outcome. It's something that you can use and your residents can use to look at different scenarios and understand things perhaps in a different way, from a different perspective than you might currently be looking at them. So natural priority resource areas, they're actually pretty straightforward. What we did was we took a bunch of existing layers that are provided by the Mass GIS system. They're used in a whole range of regulatory arenas locally and at the state level, and layered them on. And they're all listed here. I don't need to belabor the individual ones. I raised them as specific layers because one of the attributes of the online tool is it lets you turn some of these on and off. So you can see the implications of, well, if I'm worried about protecting my wellheads and I take those away, what does that do in terms of identifying or changing priority areas for protection, and how does that then play back into which areas do or don't pop up as priorities for housing? And you can do that for majority, or actually all of these layers, and play with the map yourself in that regard. The housing criteria, again, the environmental criteria were relatively easy because we're taking those off of existing data sets, and we didn't have to create anything new. Housing criteria, we're looking at building off of two major pieces. One, the regional policy plan that the commission recently adopted last year that looks a lot at place types and puts a lot of emphasis on finding density areas within previously developed areas, downtown areas, as a way of building some vibrancy into communities and to stopping the sprawl of housing across the undeveloped landscape. So, and then looking at where infrastructure, because I think everybody recognizes that the limitations because of environmental considerations, because of cost considerations, because of the protection of drinking water, of continued reliance on on-site septic systems makes achieving the density that one might want to achieve affordability extremely challenging, if not impossible. And so the role of wastewater infrastructure became very important in our consensus of developing these criteria. And then obviously looking at future development potential. So those were kind of the criteria. There was some scoring added to each one of these, try and give us the outcome. The way the map looks, and we didn't put a slide to this, but the areas that are highest priority for environmental protection are green. No great surprise there. But the areas for housing priority sort of define themselves into three categories. The purple, the first primary two, the purple hexagons, and I should point out that this map looks at things in 35-ish acre hexagons. It's not a property lot scale analysis. It's a much more broad-based analysis. So we recognize that within these hexagons, there are anomalies and different different uses of property that don't reflect a uniformity within those areas, but it's a flag of areas where it begins to start to look. So the moderate priority housing are the light purple, the highest priority are the darker purple, and then we added an element where areas would pop up as higher priority for housing, but for the lack of sewer infrastructure. And that is done to try and inform the conversation at the local level on if your objective and your paramount objective is to generate more housing, how changes in your thinking about where you might go next with your sewer infrastructure might influence how suitable certain areas are for denser housing. And then we came up with a set of recommendations. And again, these are things for you to consider and to apply as appropriate or not, as you best determine for what's best for the town of Orleans. And we're having this conversation 15 times with 15 different communities, and what's best for each one of the towns is going to be 15 different answers, and we know that. But in general, we're suggesting prioritize your spending and available funding sources to focus around benefits to housing, wastewater infrastructure, and natural resources protection. We're suggesting that your local planning initiatives and investments focus on those areas identified as priority for natural resource protection and priority for housing. We're not saying don't buy land in any one of the areas that don't fall into these two categories, but this is one of the things that you might want to think of first. Does a particular acquisition, does a change to a regulatory requirement or a land use policy support the dual objective of protecting natural resources and prioritizing housing development areas where they're both most appropriate? Target your housing production and your resource protection areas to the areas identified in the mapping area. We recognize that there are private actors who are promoting additional housing or promoting resource protection, whether it's a developer or a housing trust, on a committee, whatever it might be, that may look at a piece of land within one of these areas differently than this map does. We know that's going to happen, but we also know that as a municipality, you have a fair bit of influence in terms of what you choose to do, and we would encourage you to think of these two things as dual priorities. We recommend that areas identified as priority natural resource areas, that you update or rezone your land and your approval processes to send the signal that reduced development in those areas is the community's desire. Similarly, flip side of that coin is in those areas that are identified as most appropriate for housing, we recommend that you do some streamlining of your regulatory processes to send the signal to the market that it is easier, better, cheaper, if you will, to develop in these particular areas in the town of Orleans versus other areas in the town of Orleans, and hope that people will take that market signal and act accordingly, and propose things that are consistent with this vision or the vision as you see it applied in your particular community. And lastly, and you're already doing this, you're doing it as well or as better than anybody else on the Cape. Make your investments in wastewater infrastructure and continue to make those investments because they do provide the only pathway to improving our water quality and getting sufficient density to begin to make a dent in some of those sobering numbers that you heard earlier from your assessing department about the scarcity and therefore the higher pricing of housing. So those are the general recommendations. Again, the map is a tool. It's not a regulatory device. It's not an imposition. It's to generate thinking and discussion, and we hope, hopefully, to enhance the conversations you're having, that I know you're having, at the local level. It's important to remember that this is not a parcel level scale map. Every parcel we know has its own quirks. It fits into its neighborhood and its broader environment in ways that defy characterization across a 15-town basis, and we didn't try to do that. We put these areas on the map to get you thinking about them, recognizing that any individual parcel, for a variety of reasons, may or may not fit into the rubric into which we've placed it, but it's a good place to start the conversation. And these maps don't and shouldn't be read to be a definitive identification of the limits of resource protection or housing development within the town. We know that there are going to be parcels of land within areas that are identified as housing priority that might be really good areas for a small park, or a community park, or a pocket park, or something like that, that warrant protection, or that may be connectors between two other areas of conservation land that provide important habitat protection. And we also recognize, as I said earlier, that people are going to view access to some of these parcels in natural resource areas as better for development than this map does. We know that's going to happen, but again, it's a place to start, not necessarily a place to end. Thank you for your time. What we didn't do for this presentation, but I'll encourage everyone who has an interest in this project, is to go look at the Orleans map on the growsmartcapecod.org site. We found in these presentations, if we start up with the town map, everybody focuses in on specifics and says, well, why is that there and why is that there? And we sometimes can get lost in the details. We are happy, both APCC and HAC, to bring our staff, make our staff available to the town, to talk about the specifics, outcomes of any aspect of the map as it pertains to the town of Orleans, to dig in to tell you where the scoring came from, what the considerations were that went into it, if that would be helpful to you in using this as a tool. If it's not helpful, we'll stay home. You know, we're happy to dig into the detail. And for those of you who know me and maybe know Alyssa a little bit, you know that you don't want to dig too far into the details of a scoring process with either one of us, but we both have great staff that is happy to dig into the details with you if that would be helpful. With that, I'll stop. Happy to answer any questions or leave it for another night. I know you have a lot of business in front of you.
If I could, Madam Chair, just,
Yeah, please.
Andrew, thanks very much. And I just know that you couldn't have predicted that while you're working on this and got it launched, that the Environmental Affairs Commission would actually come out on June 1st with potentially new regs coming out on Title V and nitrogen-sensitive areas. I just really compliment you on having this launch, because I do think that's going to really dovetail well with the new potential regs coming out, and it really, again, gets us better equipped to answer questions and respond. So things are going along amazingly well. Last thing I will say, whether it be sewer infrastructure or housing development, as you well know, and we all around the table here know, this stuff takes an incredible amount of time. We are working at this for years and decades, but by putting all the pieces together, and again, Elisa had to go to another meeting, but if you look at all the tools, this being just one of them, that Housing Assistance Corps provides, whether it be first-time homebuyer assistance or the accessory dwelling unit, go down the list, all of these different facets are the way we're going to solve this. Not through one big project, that's for sure. So thank you.
Yeah, I lost my camera here for a minute, but I'm still here.
Good. Andrew, I want to say that this is an incredible tool for us in conversation with the Planning Board and the Housing Trust and the Housing Committee to test our thinking against and as a reference. So I'm, having worked with some of the other planning tools that were, I think, 10-acre parcels previously at the Cape Cod Commission, this was very cool, the little bit I've been able to kind of play around with it. And I really appreciate that you guys are taking the time to talk to all 15 towns because we discuss housing regionally all the time. So
Right.
this is great. Any other comments from anyone? Brad, question?
Hi, Brad Hino, Town Assessor again. I was asked to be on the advisory committee for the creation of these maps. I would just want to stand up here briefly. I hung around. I have a 6-month-old son at home that I'm
Aw.
desperate to get home to. But I thought it was worth sticking around to say that these maps are a delightful tool.
Yes.
I couldn't encourage the boards strongly enough to make use of them. They wanted an assessor's perspective on what these maps, what these developments could do. And then COVID hit and the market just lost its mind, so there really wasn't much I could provide. But when these maps were released, I took our map and looked at upcoming affordable housing projects that either in the pipeline or in the design phase, whatever. And their methodology nailed every one of those spots,
Yep.
whether it be high density, for moderate use, or for a high priority. The maps were right on target. So I would just encourage anybody, please, make use of these maps. That's all I got.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Brad, will you come around to the other towns with us?
Play the
Not
tape.
if your kid doesn't get better, right?
Thank you.
Anyway, we appreciate Brad's efforts at, he underplays the value that his contributions made to helping us structure this in a way that it worked for Orleans, and I think that it has worked for the other towns that we've presented it in. So we appreciate his efforts on our behalf.
And we were even talking today, some of us, about you can't really separate the dual priority of environmental protection and housing creation. So the fact that you are, as a regional organization, partnering up to carry that conversation forward tremendously helps us at the local level. So thank you.
Thank you. Like I said, we like to not leave it at this, and we're available to continue this conversation at your invitation, whatever
Right.
works best for the town. Thank
Good.
you for your time, and appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good night.
Andrew.
We'll be back.
Yeah, and I don't want to do it tonight, but I
No.
really have a bunch of things that I would.
Yeah, well, this is a very long packed agenda, so, Tom, Ron,
Okay.
thank you, Andrew. We will be circling
you.
back.
Very good.
Ken, are you here for this too?
Oh, I just love to come and watch.
I know. But no, there was no easy chair, right?
I will make one comment. When the four
Ken?
reps from the town.
Ken?
It's going to be a longer walk. When Nate and Brad and that were up here speaking, if you sit at it from that side and listen, all of a sudden you say, this is why I live here. We have our problems for sure, but that presentation by those four gentlemen would make a tremendous ad if we wanted to draw more people here. Just was a thought I had.
It is going out by video. It is going out. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. I've got to figure out how to get this going. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
we're back on screen?
It needs a password.
Tom, is what you're going to be putting up there in our packet?
Yes.
The updated one is in your packet.
Now, how do I get to the one I need?
Mia?
It's loaded on the desktop, so you could.
Yeah, let me stand back and let somebody that knows what they're doing do it.
Here you go.
You got it.
Ta-da.
Perfect. Thank you. Tom Finan, I'm the chair of the new Fire Rescue Feasibility Study Committee, and here to present our fourth update to the Select Board. With a PowerPoint, I knew John would be disappointed if I didn't have a PowerPoint tonight, so I got one together. Two of our members are here tonight, Alexis Matheson and Ken Heritage, and also Ron Collins, who has been very helpful to us in this project, and Chief Deering as well. So welcome to all of them. This starts out with a headline. On July 13th, 2022, the Elementary School Committee voted that it was not in the best interest of the OAS community to continue to participate in the feasibility study. I'll dig into that a little more and then get on to the topics that you see in front of you, talking a little bit about the history, how we've developed the findings for the properties we were charged to examine, and then talk about our votes and next steps. So let me branch off of this to some introductory remarks. The first one I have is under housekeeping. And in my haste to get the select board packet together for tonight's meeting, I erred in not considering that the Fire Rescue Committee should meet to reach consensus on next steps. The committee will be meeting at a scheduled time that we already have on the agenda for August 11th, 2022, 4 o'clock in the afternoon in this room for that purpose. Then after that meeting, I will come back to the select board with recommendations. The focus on tonight's presentation is next steps rather than recommendations. So recent happenings are a joint meeting of the Fire Rescue Feasibility Study Committee and the Orleans Elementary School Committee was held on Monday, July 11th, 2022. This meeting was adjourned with an agreement to meet again on Wednesday, July 13th, 2022, 2 days later. At this meeting, Gail Brer, who's the chair of the Orleans Elementary School Committee, made some opening remarks which she asked me to read at this meeting tonight, and I will do that now. These are Gail Brer's words. When the school committee was approached by the town to consider being part of the feasibility study, it was presented as a possible win-win for the fire station and OES. John Kelly indicated that this was an opportunity for OES to enhance its campus in exchange for approximate 1 acre of land. Principal Pender, who's the principal of the Orleans Elementary School, developed a list of considerations which were to be incorporated into the agreement of the feasibility study. The vote by the school committee to be included in the study was 5-0 in favor. I attended all meetings of the Fire Rescue Committee other than the first meeting and went into this with the idea of making this a win-win. At the Fire Rescue Committee meetings, I felt included, listened to, and respected. My school committee members were appraised of what was going on at our monthly meetings were held. However, since June 13th, 3 Fire Rescue Committee meetings took place and plans were moving at a rapid speed to consider design using OES property with the removal of the current building and the designs with the retention of the current building. I was very concerned how the meeting Monday would go, and it would seem that my concern was warranted. The school committee set out wanting to be a partner on this project. In retrospect, more time and opportunity to understand all the nuances of moving forward should have been allowed rather than the time frame of reaching a decision for the select board meeting next week. This is a huge commitment on the committee's part. Comments such as feeling rushed, not feeling like a partnership, taking OES along don't work in favor of moving forward. Somehow the considerations we were asked to provide came across as OES asking for too much, when in fact, what it would have cost to purchase land for this project might have been even higher. The presentation generated many questions from school committee members, not all of which could be answered. The designs, renderings were not all inclusive of suggestions made to address drop-off points for buses versus parents, eliminating choke points and the overhead shelter to connect to the building for staff on duty during arrival and dismissal. The principal very clearly indicated that there needs to be a study of traffic flow to ensure that this design actually works. The school committee needs to know the results of that study as part of making an informed decision. After much reflection, this may be a time to step back, do more due diligence to the questions and concerns expressed by the school committee, and involve them more as partners to see if a solution can truly result in a win-win that seems so promising in the beginning of the process. And she concluded by saying, as a committee, are you willing to step back, look for ways to improve the partnership aspect of this process, and get your questions and concerns addressed before deciding on the feasibility of the OES site? And then she opened the floor for comments. That's the end of Gail's remarks, and she's referring to elements of diagrams that I will be bringing forward when it gets to it on the PowerPoint. And then the meeting outcome was, after comments and discussion, the Orleans Elementary School Committee concluded that it was not in the best interest of the OES community to continue to participate in the feasibility study and voted 0-3-1 not to support the recommended one-building solution, which I will describe later in this presentation, as I just said. So then I'll conclude my opening remarks that the Fire Rescue Committee members would like to find a way to move forward, and we'll discuss that on the 11th. So now, as that with a backdrop, I'll move on to the presentation, unless somebody has some comments at this point. Okay. And we will roll into this. Always like to acknowledge everyone that has participated in it, in this process, and thanks to all involved in it. And although the OES solution has not worked out, the time and energy spent by the OES team is acknowledged and appreciated, and along with thanks to all the others who were involved. Now, the project history, I think, is important because it started even before the committee was formed. In 2021, the Select Board decided not to consider Governor Prince as a place to construct a fire rescue facility. In August of 2021, there was a conclusion of a feasibility study that was launched to see if it was practical to renovate and expand the current station. And the conclusion of that was continue to occupy the current building and build a new building. At the special town meeting in October of last year, $100,000 for new building feasibility study was appropriated with the expressed statement that it exclude any activity by this committee to look at the middle school property. January of '22, the OES committee was asked to consider a 1-acre property for the fire rescue facility. Then our committee was formed. We had our first meeting that John Kelly helped us kick off in January of 2022, and we were asked to consider a 1-acre, and we had our first meeting. Moving on to Valentine's Day of 2022, the OES committee agreed to partner in the fire rescue feasibility study. March 2022, an RFP was released encouraging owners of property in town within a certain area that would maintain adequate response times to come forward if they wish to have their property considered for construction of a new fire station. And no property owners responded. In addition to the RFP, there were targeted letters that went out to about a dozen points that we felt that would be very advantageous for this construction, and no response from any of those letters either. In early April, the committee toured Brewster, Chatham, and Hyannis fire rescue buildings, all of which are relatively new, and they had a common thread. They were designed, then downsized, built smaller for more money, and are now out of space. So whatever you decide to do with a fire station building, the most economical way forward is going to be to get going and build it. And much of this was before this inflation took off like a rocket, particularly in construction inflation. On 4/20 of 2022, I reported to the Select Board that the OES site was the sole focus of our study and that there was no Plan B, because you can see with what preceded it, all the other opportunities had dried up. In May, KBA, Castle Booz Associates Architect, contracted to conduct a new facility study, feasibility study. And this was to evaluate town-owned properties at 18 Bay Ridge Lane, that's where the old DPW used to be, and 139 Main Street, across where the Historical Society is, and we put the trailers when we did the police station. And evaluate 46 Eldridge Park Way, which is the Orleans Elementary School property, for a one-building solution. On June 13th, we got new direction from the Select Board to evaluate Eldridge Park Way in addition to a one-building solution, to evaluate a two-building solution, to see if the current facility could be maintained for use in the future for general municipal purposes, and to consider putting a parking garage on the structure to take care of the parking that would be displaced, meaning there would be 3 structures on the site. I just quickly hit on the fact that we met twice, on the 11th and the 13th, and the elementary school committee in joint meetings to vote on recommendations to bring forward. And now here I am tonight with the results of all of what transpired. KBA was to, as I said, do two properties on the town-owned list and 2 solutions for the OES property. Now, this is Bay Ridge Lane. And this is a good point to pause and note that when you build a fire station, it's not a fire station you're building, it's a fire station facility. Because it not only needs the station, but it needs all of the room around it to handle the turning radiuses of all of the large equipment, some of the largest, if not the largest, that we have in this town, in order to get in and out of the facility. So KBA took the outline of a building which was based on a 18,000 square foot footprint and a 25,000 square foot building. And the basic shape of it that you see is consistent as I go through the other diagrams. The top of the T, if you look at the diagram, that's the apparatus bays, and the wings of the T are the offices and the rest of the structure, sleeping quarters, everything else that's required. So when looking at this facility, it did have the advantage that it was a town-owned property. I'm going to read what was in the blue box, because unless you have a huge screen at home, you cannot read this. So the cons were, it was way out, almost in Brewster, and it didn't meet the response time needs. Proximity to wetlands, if you look at the left-hand side of the diagram where it fades off, you even see some of the little dotted spaces coming in. That's all wetland and falls into that category as you come out the rear of the building, so it would prohibit any construction there. Unsuitable subsurface material, there's no reason to believe that that was properly filled in years ago when this was built. We'd need full demolition of the existing buildings, and hazardous materials are known to be there that would need to be abated, and it's outside of the town's proposed sewer area. So the conclusion was that due to the location, lot size, topography, wetlands buffer zone, and vehicle circulation issues, this site is not a feasible option. So if you want to ask questions as we go while it's on the screen, please interrupt me, otherwise I'll push on to the next one. Okay. This is the property across the street here at 139 Main Street. Same kind of footprint. It's a town-owned property and within the Phase 2 sewer district, so it had those pros. The cons is it's way into East Orleans and not centrally located for response time concerns, insufficient parking for the Historical Society and their events. They depend very heavily on that shared parking lot that we share with the auxiliary building for the town hall. Undesirable commingling of public and first responder vehicles. Site is too small, and also the topography as you walk out on School Road, this property sits at an extreme height. I don't know what the actual footage is, but you wouldn't want to try to walk up that bank to the next level, so it doesn't lend itself to it. Setbacks cannot be met. Unsuitable subsurface materials, we know that because we had to dig into that parking lot when we hooked the sewers for the trailers at the police station into the septic system for this building. We need to demo the existing building that is currently used as a town hall annex and eliminates town hall overflow parking. So the conclusion was, due to the location, lot size, topography, and vehicle circulation issues, this site is not a feasible option. Now I'm going to cover the two-building solution for the Orleans Elementary School property next. Looking at the diagram, the intent is to accommodate a fire rescue building on the OES property, sharing their 1 acre, and that's the building you see in the T shape there to the left. To the right of that is the current fire rescue building, intent here being to retain that. And above it in the white is a parking garage of 100 and a few cars, multi-story. The traffic would come in and out of have to come in and out of the same place where the fire rescue vehicles come to today. It has poor OES accessibility and parking, and it disrupts their parking pattern. No secondary egress for the fire department. We did have an issue when the traffic lights were being put out there that a gas main was cut into, and it closed off our rescue vehicles and fire vehicles from even getting out of their facility. Tennis courts have to be deleted. Now, we had no license to go beyond the 1 acre with OES, but in order to show what it would take, this was put forth. The OES drive needed to access to the new fire department and parking structures during construction. There's no particular way that you could get in and out of there, and it would complicate anything going on with the school. And the new fire department and parking structure would be very, very visible from the site. Particular concern is a big parking garage sitting in their view. It came up several times during the discussion with the school committee that the kids' attention is very easily diverted out of their lesson books, or whatever they call them these days, and what's going on outside. And this would further aggravate that thing by bringing it all the way up there. And it's not only when it's there, but the fact that it needs to be constructed. So the conclusion was, due to the amount of different uses and their circulation requirements, it is not feasible to develop this site as proposed. And this is the same story with the same conclusions. I won't read them all again, but even tried to move and flip the two, put the parking garage, the white, on the bottom portion of the diagram, and the T-shaped building on the upside. Even aggravates further visibility to the students and all. Still takes the tennis courts, and deemed that that would not be an appropriate way to push forward on this. Okay, now to the option that was considered to be feasible. And this is the result of a lot of iterations back and forth with our architect, with Ron Collins, with Jeff Deering, with the committees on what would be the appropriate approach to this thing. So again, the big T-shaped building in the middle of the property is there for purposes for the fire department. And to the right of that is where the current fire rescue station is, and that becomes parking. Most important in all of this is the traffic patterns. Starting on the bottom right of the diagram and following the yellow line, that goes in from where the traffic light is at Eldridge Parkway today. And that is a route for the school buses. So twice a day, they would be coming in that driveway and following that yellow line all the way around to the top of the diagram in order to pick kids up and drop them off. In addition to that, that driveway would be shared by the fire rescue emergency equipment getting out, and they would have a dedicated egress from there out, so nothing gets in their way, and they still have the light at the top that they can stop the traffic on Eldridge Parkway. Over to the left-hand side of the diagram is the current driveway to the elementary school. And that the blue line is parents, staff, et cetera, would come in to pick up their kids. And they would have a queuing area there. And it doesn't show on this diagram, but the intent would be to have some kind of a canopied, covered situation in that white band that's just under the yellow loop and above the blue loop, so that the kids, staff, whatever, when they come out, they aren't standing out there in the rain waiting for their parents or waiting for the bus. Improvements would be made all the way on the sidewalk from Eldridge Parkway into the building to make it more accessible, handicap-friendly, et cetera. And the big plus is that it picks up considerable parking for the school, and they have challenges when they have major events, that there's just not enough parking places for everyone. So anyway, the pros of this were that it is town-owned property. I should say municipally owned property. Because town implies that it's under the jurisdiction of the select board, and it's not. It's under the jurisdiction of the elected Orleans Elementary School Committee. It's within the future sewer district. It maintains response time. It's virtually in the same place that it is today. Improved accessibility and parking and safe vehicle traffic patterns for the school, and improved safety drop-off zones. The cons are, it's an extensive investment in improvements. The topography of this land is not flat. It would need attention. It has sandy structure underneath, so you don't have soil that would support big buildings, so that would have to be attended to. Hazardous materials need to be abated when you tear down the old fire building. We know there's hazardous materials involved, and multiple easements would be required. That's a lead-in to the last thing I want to talk about on the diagram. If you go from the yellow line on the right-hand side, there's the stoplight. Then there's an office building, and then the intent would be to get an easement from the owners of the property to the left of that red line that goes into the fire station. So that they would, number one, we would use that during construction, and number two, it would become a public entrance for the fire station, so it's not competing with any of the emergency traffic that's trying to make it up and down. So the conclusion is the location, lot side, and campus-wide improvements make this a site as a feasible option to put the new fire station. It's going to need significant investments, but you're investing in something as part of the municipal infrastructure rather than in putting investment into someone else's property. That's the end of the diagrams. So then the committees met and took votes. We voted in May as a fire rescue committee unanimously to exclude from further consideration the two town-owned properties at 18 Bay Ridge Lane and 139 Main Street. They just were not workable. Then we focused on the OAS property at 46 Eldridge Park Way. On 7/11, we voted on the two-building solution. And by unanimous vote by both committees, it was rejected as not a feasible solution. Then we turned our attention to the one-building solution. The Fire Rescue Committee voted to defer. Now, that needs a little explanation, because we had earlier voted to move ahead with the one-building solution. But we felt, because more dialogue was needed, the best thing to do was back away from that and say, let's not make a decision until we get an opportunity to dialogue further on it. And as I went into detail at the beginning of the presentation, after a lot of discussion, the OAS committee voted 0-3-1 not to move on any further with the feasibility study. So that's where we sit today. So, next steps, with the backdrop of the OES committee voting not to proceed, I want to meet with members of the Fire Rescue Committee again on the 11th of August, give us a chance for this to kind of sink in and digest, and the members would like to find a way to move forward. And then come up with some kind of consensus among the committee, and by a majority vote, agree on recommendations for the select board. And if you, your schedule calls for a meeting on 8/24, if that continues to be the schedule, we will come back, I'll come back at that time. But really, the takeaway on this is a new fire rescue facility continues to be an urgent need. During this whole process, I haven't found any pushback on the fact that this needs to get done. That's it.
Thank you, Tom. That's a lot of work, and I appreciate your detailed reporting.
You're welcome.
And the fact that you're going to keep talking. Right?
Yes.
Any other comments, Matt?
Yeah, Tom, I just would, when you were going through the pros and cons here, in just about every one of the cons was that there is extensive investment in improvements to the OES Fire Rescue Campus. And to me, the pro here that doesn't get listed is that there's no need to build any temporary fire stations.
Good point.
And it would seem to me, and when we had the initial discussions with the OES, the idea that there was going to be significant funds spent to improve the Orleans Elementary School campus was done within the context that it was, whatever we spent there was going to be a lot less than it was going to be to build a temporary
Key point.
facility.
It's been from the beginning, if you had the land to build a temporary facility, that's where you'd build the permanent facility, but we simply don't have it. Good point, I made a note of it, that's very key.
Ken, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I think I would, and maybe not as a member of the committee, maybe just as myself. I think we're fooling ourselves if we just assume that the OAS land is the right place. Not from what the chief wants, it's absolutely the right place, but you have to go and look at that site from a construction standpoint, and there's a lot of construction experience on this committee. And we are, several of us are very concerned about what it's going to cost to make that site, A, workable, B, buy a 50-foot wide easement, and C, construct it in this little area. So I don't think we can go forward thinking that we just get back together with the Orleans Elementary School, and I love working with Gail, by the way, and get a solution from them, because it's more involved than that. And I think, as our leader said, that's why we want to get together again, to go into this further before he comes back and makes a recommendation. And there is a lot of money going into it that's for the school. And I've been by there many times, and they need to do something about the the children getting out of the cars and so on and so forth. It's not safe, you know. But their list of considerations included a 1,000-yard perimeter exercise track.
Yeah, I want
So-
you to finish your work as your committee, if that's possible, and then give us a full
Well,
report,
okay.
rather than go into the details of your conversations right now. I think you've
Well,
got.
they weren't the details of our conversation necessarily.
Okay.
That, as I said, they are some of my thoughts.
Any other feedback, or, Kevin?
Just to say thank you
Yeah.
to everybody involved.
You-
And your last comment, I will just read it because it still needs to be said. A new fire rescue facility continues to be an urgent need for the town of Orleans. Please, folks, let's get creative. Let's overcome some of these constraints. We can work on this and do it.
And when I come back, that's likely to be how I'll conclude the next time.
Thank you.
It's not going to go away.
Matt?
The only question I'd ask, Tom, is do you think the school committee would be okay with studying, continuing, without any agreement from them to participate or not participate in a feasibility study?
That's what they were asked to vote on, and they said no,
Right.
resoundingly no.
I-
Now, someone can always change their mind, but that would be up to them rather than me to speculate.
Tom, I would really appreciate, Gail in her letter said a lot of very important things. She felt listened to, she felt respected, but she also identified places where the dynamic of partnership maybe wasn't felt as strongly. And I think that's worth more of a conversation in order to understand how we can, it's kind of like the presentation we just heard, where we have open space and we've got housing, and we need to figure out how to work together. We're still one body here. And I would really appreciate if your recommendations could include how to better partner, whether it's the school or a different site, what that process would entail.
The only comment I make on that, and it really would be beneficial if you have not watched particularly the meeting of the 13th. It wasn't terribly long, but some of the comments were, it's just the wrong place, it's too close to the school. So there were things other than process, because what Gail's remarks were going into the meeting of the 13th. They weren't meant to capture what happened on that meeting of the 13th. You were there, am I characterizing that properly?
Yeah, so if you identify, and what I think I heard was the amount of activity on the site might be a continuing concern. I mean, that was said, the density of activity. And so things like that, if we can tease out, it might inform our way forward. Anybody else? Great, well, thank you. We will look forward to your return on the 24th.
All right, I will be here, good Lord willing.
Alexis, you're not going to hang out?
I don't think so.
You don't?
It's been a night in a row.
Your work speaks for itself, right?
I'm starting to feel like Mark.
Right.
And all of you guys. Giving town hall my best this week.
Yeah. There you are. Cool. All right, moving right along. We're on page 51, I believe, of the packet.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lex. 51 of the packet, Meth, I think, did a yeoman's job reorienting our minds around this whole 2- and 3-term issue. Anybody want to?
Move to approve.
God, I love it. When it gets late, we go fast, huh? As is, that other blue line, that was, just a referral to when we need skill sets, right?
Only thing I'll say is just, I'm always thinking, we bless it, it's good. Again, thank you, Mev, for thinking totally out of the box and kind of redirecting. But as we implement this, and you're the master of adjusting the application form, I do hope that the form meets the criteria we've now set. I don't know that it does, I'm just putting it out there. How does someone say to us, I'm best able to serve the town? I'm best able to, I think we need to bless this, but if someone would take on the application form for candidates to match this up, we need to integrate that, just saying.
But isn't it our job to figure out what best serves the town based on the information on the form?
And that's my point. I just don't think
That the form,
form's lined up well with this yet.
okay.
And just to go back to one of the things I mentioned before, I think in that form, perhaps, we all need to be thinking about that and looking at that criteria for specific skill sets for the regulatory boards
Yeah, they should be spelled out.
should be really spelled out.
I think so.
That, to have somebody come in and say, I'd really like to get involved in that because I have an interest in that or whatever, but don't have any experience in that. And, we get into trouble on those things. And so I think it might be,
Yeah.
this is good. I like, excuse me, I like this. I think when we get down to the specifics of the forms and how to make sure that the candidates that do apply are truly understanding of what it is that they're going to be expected to do and how to do it.
It's great. You're absolutely right.
That's where I was trying to go.
Yeah,
But
no,
thank you,
and,
Mike.
and I think, John, what we should do is look at, this may require reach out to the chairs, because we have some committees where it's quite specific in how they were formed, but we have, the Housing Trust. There were certain skill sets, they needed the blend of that. But the other conversation I've gotten into with one committee in particular is where we needed, I thought it was in the formation of the committee that we needed particular credentials, and they're committee members that may have focused on that in college, but are not practitioners in the field. And not being able to differentiate with that on the form is going to be critical to us if we're requiring a license or a credential.
The other part to focus on is we provide a summary of each committee on the committee page, and we publish it in the warrant. I think we try to identify when there are specific professional qualifications, such as the Building Code Board of Appeals.
Yes.
So that would be an area, because we do tell them, check the information we have on the committees, but
We can put it right on the form.
That's what I'm saying.
to the
When
extent
it's
we
yeah.
can, or highlight, maybe just with an asterisk, the one that requires specific technical skills.
Right.
But I think we
But
can.
let's review that.
We can update the form. It's a fillable form we use, and that's easy to do, and then trying to make sure everything coincides with the policy is really the next step.
And if you have other edits relative to that, please send them and take a look at the form. Michael?
I think Mark's point is great,
Yeah.
that it should be customized to what the needs are for that particular committee. But a lot of this too is reappointments, which we don't fill out forms for any of the reappointments, right?
But we do have their original credentials, and usually by the time we're reappointing, we're aware. Would you like
would
them
be
to
good
be
to
formed?
include
I'm
those
just
in the
thinking
packets, by the
through
way.
that,
Yeah.
this is length of service really, and we're really talking about whether 2-3 years.
So we
bring a
normally
different
keep
point?
the appointment, original appointments, we keep applications on file for a year. I don't know that we would be.
I'm not
able to
saying we
go back.
should. I'm
No, no,
just bringing
to
it
say
up.
that we could give you somebody's application from 6 years ago. I
Yeah.
think that's possible. Well, to that point, we've generally looked at the term limits as, the first term, if you want to be reappointed, it's more or less your choice unless, things happen. We've never asked them to fill out a new citizen interest form. That would be a change, it'd be something the board would have to consider, but that's not part of what we ask now.
But we
But we could do something different if you wanted, to felt the need to.
Or we can reiterate on the committees, because we're about to do reappointments tonight, on the committees where we have those skill sets that are important, you could remind us in the packet, this committee
Yeah.
needs these skills, and then when we're
Right.
doing the reappointments, that's the time to make sure, do we have them?
I guess I would make two comments on this. The first relates to what we were just talking about. All reappointments of committee members will be guided by those considerations. So I think the idea of making that first reappointment sort of a automatic is something that this was intended to
Disrupt.
disrupt.
Yeah, yeah.
And the last thing is, this last paragraph, which talks about supporting the committees, doesn't specifically have the word budget in here, but I think that when we go to create our budget, we need to find some line item
Yes.
that is associated with this.
So that goes back to, my hope and prayer is that we get the money to do that reorganization study in terms of town hall, and then you would be able to attach a resource person and the money to really back this up.
I guess the point is that I think we're committing to more financial support than we've given in the past.
Yeah. And we're teasing out in these conversations with, meeting with chairs, or their designees once a month, teasing out what's missing for them in that experience to do the work we're really relying on them from. So, more comments? Did you make a motion?
I made a motion.
Yeah.
You didn't get seconded.
No, I seconded.
Okay.
And
Michael seconded.
so this has all been that discussion. Are we ready? All those in favor?
Aye.
With the caveat that we will now take our hand to the citizens volunteer form, interest form. Great, thank you. Moving right along. Ready for those committee reappointments we discussed?
So this is the balance of where we left off. We did all the regulatory boards, we did the ones where we had interviews. These are ones where there's currently, working with Molly, we don't have new candidates. It's basically just the reappointments of the existing committee members who wish to be reappointed. And in a couple of cases, so for each one, if we want to start with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board, Molly has in your packet the current members, as well as the reappointment list of starting with Andrea, working our way down along the top. So do you want to take them one at a time? And
Well, no, I want to just, this is the one committee, one of the committees where I'm getting off because in the talk with the chair, he doesn't have the skill set on the committee, and we already had 2 select board people on the committee. So it makes terrific sense. My vacancy, if Michael becomes the select board liaison, that frees the chair up, and they're going to reorganize soon, to then find that missing skill set in a new member, and we will have to be aware of that in the appointment.
don't say liaison, this is a voting member
Sorry.
of the board.
The member,
Not a liaison.
member.
Okay.
But what I want to say is, this is our responsibility to close the loop,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that the candidate forward has that skill set.
But we're creating a vacancy. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, how do you want to do this?
Madam
We
Chair,
could do it as one motion, right?
I will make a motion.
I think Michael needs to be a separate motion.
Yes.
Michael, and just personally, I'd have to recuse myself on one member being reappointed. So maybe if we did individual ones, it would be better. We do it quickly.
Let's go.
I move Michael Herman be appointed as the select board representative
Second.
on the Affordable Housing Trust.
The term ending.
Term ending 6/30/24.
Second.
Discussion?
I guess I
Can I just ask you one question?
No, you
Because
don't have
to.
is this something the select board does annually? Because right now, what we're saying is this would be 2 years, right?
Yeah, the term, it does not have a individual term. It's for 1 year for the select board. All the trustees are 2-year terms. We did check the bylaw, and it's right at the top of the heading. So we try to give you enough information about the underlying.
But Michael's appointment says 24, not
So
22.
mine-
2 years.
Well, he has no term on the bottom, but up by.
So Michael's original term was, he filled I think, the balance of an unexpired term. So his original term was supposed to end in '22. So you're reappointing him now, it'll be a new term, and it'll end in '24. I think
There we
that's
go.
what we're doing.
So he will stay the appointee from the select board, or we will rotate that and create the same issue we've had last year?
No, so you, at least one member. That's why there was no
At
issue.
least
when
one member.
Michael filled when he ran in October. You could have 2 select board members, so he basically was an at-large member, and then he became a select board, but it didn't change anything.
But I'm just putting forth the idea that if Michael becomes chair next year and wants to cut down on, he doesn't know yet, but you'll decide when
You
you
can
get
always
there.
change, you can always reorganize, you can always, I mean.
If we do a 1 year, though, we have the most flexibility, right?
Except the bylaw provides for terms of 2 years. So I think the other way to do it is to have a mid-year change if you wanted to.
Okay.
That's the simplest way.
Okay. Ready? All those in favor?
Aye.
That's 500. Okay, how
Madam
about
Chair,
two together?
I will make the motion to reappoint Katie Wibby and Alan McLennan, both with terms ended 6/30/2024.
Second.
And in our discussion, I would note that they each bring separate skill sets that were required by the committee, so it's fantastic. Great. All right, ready? All those in favor?
Aye.
500.
And I'll make a
Madam
motion. Oh, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to reappoint Alexis Matheson, term ending 6/30/2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
401. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Moving right along, Agricultural Committee.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
I
you do
spoke to
that.
the chair of this, Judy Scanlon. She's the chair pro temp right now, and they're reorganizing in their next meeting. They had not been able to do it the last meeting, but there will be some changes around. So in discussing with her, she requested if we postpone this vote until after they reorganize. I don't see any issue with that, but
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? So, all those in favor?
Aye.
500, we will expect to see them back. Yes, and the fact that we have 2 vacancies for new members should be spread around town. Community Preservation Committee?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to request reappointment of John Lipman to term ending 6/30/2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Council on Aging?
Madam Chair, I would request for reappointment of Deborah Stephen and Sandra Chenik, terms ending 6/30/2025.
Second.
They're really hardworking too
They
over
are
there.
very.
All those, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then just on that, to
The new, Robert?
yeah,
Thank
Bob
Robert.
Singer is leaving. So to thank him for
Yeah.
all of
Yes.
his hard work. And he's been the
Absolutely.
vice chair and really instrumental too in a lot of meetings. He's had to step up and run, so thank you to him.
He's served on a lot of committees all
Yeah.
over town. Okay, moving on. Thank you, Robert. Cultural Council.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to reappoint Heather Moran and Claire Gradone to the Cultural Council with terms for both ending 6/30/2025.
Second.
And they are a great team, the two of them. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Also, vacancies
Yeah,
available.
wow.
Well, it's a big group.
That is a big one.
Yeah, so is the next one.
If you want to do these 2 together, I'll abstain from both of them. I mean, I'll just abstain.
You're not related to Norma, huh?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we reappoint to the Cultural District Committee Bonnie Campbell Runyon and Norma Gwynn, both with terms ended 6/30/2025.
Second.
Discussion? Other than to thank them, they do a lot of work. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Got that, John?
Yes.
Great. Getting punchy. Wastewater Management Advisory Committee,
Great.
1 candidate. Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Herman.
No, thank Dick.
Delivering the sacrificial lamb.
Madam Chair, I'd recommend appointing Dick Hartman as the planning board member to the, what are we calling it? The Wastewater Management Advisory Committee.
Second.
Discussion? We're lucky to get them.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's a 500. ZBA.
Madam Chair.
Chair.
Oh, go ahead.
Love it. Arm wrestle.
Madam Chair, we'd like to, I'd propose to elevate to regular member Matt Cole, term ending 6/30/2025,
Discussion?
To the ZBA.
to the ZBA.
And again, a skill set as development person in town, Matt, brings a perspective to this board.
Just another note, Madam Chair, very important body in this town.
Yes. Mhm.
And vacancies exist here.
Yes.
Please.
And actually, we're looking particularly for somebody with a legal background for this one. Ready to vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. 500.
We need,
Okay, John, we still awake?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
That was good. So the next item, just again, we put the latest iteration of the special town meeting warrant index in your packet. Talking with Tom Daly today and Tom Parise, there's a couple of additional items they're going to look for wastewater. So I'll provide another update for August 3rd. And I think on August 10th, there'll be part of the discussion will be with the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners on what they see are things that we should be doing in October. And just have to make sure that everybody's in agreement in terms of what funding we might be asking for in advance of any additional work that we're doing. And as Andrea mentioned, I think, I know we're going to talk about the staffing and organizational study for the rec department, but if you want to do something in town hall, then my suggestion is that we add a $25,000 item to the index so that we can get additional funding. The rec study is going to use not only the $15,000 that I encumbered from FY22, but it's going to use your full consulting budget of $15,000 in '23. So you really won't have an additional amount to do further study. So the goal would be to ask for those funds in October.
And
should
so
we replenish? I apologize.
there's a rec committee meeting tomorrow night, and that's a question that they want answered, and so.
I've already commented to Tracy that I expect funding, I expect to get the green light tonight to go ahead. I told her we have the money on hand to do the study.
But we don't have a company to do the study, right?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
the
okay,
proposal in the
okay,
packet. We're good to go. I just want the board to be comfortable.
Okay.
That's everything we want done, and it's a $26,000, $26,300, I think. That's the figure, and I just asked Kathy if we could encumber the 15. She said yes, plus I have 15 that started July 1. I have $30,000. We're good to go. And I told
You
Tracy.
have to get this funded.
This one
Yeah.
first, right? I have told
Yeah.
Tracy we're all set. I expect to get the green light tonight.
For rec.
The rec study, which
Right.
is, I sent her the
Yeah.
proposal.
Yeah.
And that's what's in your packet I want to review with you.
Is your
in my
question
report.
addressed?
No, I mean, it's
Okay.
not a question, but if we're using the money to make up the difference for the rec study, do we want to make sure we ask a town meeting to replenish that?
So your consulting account,
Yeah.
taking your entire fiscal '23 amount
Out.
If you
Yeah.
want, you should, maybe we talk about replenishing plus the 25.
Good question.
Or we can talk about doing that. And this might be one of those one-time expenses that we can use the free cash name and be able to fund some of these projects without additional tax burden. So those are things we want to talk about with Kathy.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. So,
She doesn't like that. So anyway,
well,
but,
we'll twist her arm.
but
But I
the-
think it falls within the board's policy of one-shot project funds.
opposed to budget.
As opposed to
Yeah.
subsidizing the operating budget.
Right.
But again, that's a different discussion.
But I think what I'm trying to get consensus on tonight is to proceed with the recreation, not on warrant, but
Yeah.
a placeholder, because the convergence of the town manager description coming from Charter Review, the identification that Meth referred to earlier about the support, and the changing technology and communications goals we have with residents, I think really require a review of how we use the town administrator's office at this point. And I would like that done before we, because I just think the timing of it is it's imperative.
Do we need to vote on anything here?
Well,
No, I'll just add it to the list as a
Okay.
placeholder.
Great.
And
Yeah,
then
that's
It'll just be a
placeholder.
scorecard of things the board will actually ultimately have to vote.
Any other things on the warrant step out?
Yeah, I'm still wrestling with the, where is it? Number, well, there's no number.
Yeah, there are no
The,
numbers yet.
The the study for the value of Rock Harbor.
Well,
And
Took out blue economy.
no,
That was-
and I just want to get this right. I would say the study to determine the economic value of Rock Harbor and Nauset Harbor.
That should have been put back in, yeah. So we shouldn't have taken economy out altogether. So I'll add economic value.
That's good. Good
Okay.
catch.
Nauset's still there in red. I think it's taken out.
Do you want to take Nauset Harbor?
no,
out? I think
Nauset
you
I
wanted
was just
Nauset
saying,
Harbor.
I was saying, the Nauset is in there in red.
Yeah, so we took we added, it got added in red.
Yeah.
So I'll add back in economic value of Rock Harbor and Nauset Harbor.
And any other comments about I have one, only because we've heard different points of view, and I don't know whether we need more information. Mark, you mentioned last meeting or the meeting before about the demolition, not doing the demolition on Governor Prince. And then we also have a placeholder for demolition. And so my question is, what is best practice on town-owned properties if you're putting them out there for development? Because we've heard different opinions. And I don't want to get into a fight on town floor about whether, if we pull it sooner. But we don't have enough information. We're getting conflicting information. So it's just if somebody could address that with us so we know whether to keep this article in or pull it.
Yeah, so at this point, you've authorized, and the decision is really a joint decision between the Select Board and the Affordable Housing Trust, because you both own the property.
That's right.
So you both authorized the town to engage design services to put together plans and specs for what the cost of demolishing and restoration of the site was. That hasn't been finished, so that's ongoing.
Okay.
So I expect that's going to come back to the board, and then the two boards can make a decision whether you want to go forward in October or whether you want to defer it. The value of having that plan done is that can be added to an RFP.
That's right.
This is the site restoration we're expecting that you'll do, and here's some of the underlying work to avoid you having to replicate the effort. So, but we don't
need a
have that
context,
final,
right.
we don't have that final effort right now. That's why the placeholder is still in there.
Okay. But all I'm
And I added the question mark because I think that was what came up at the last meeting.
Yeah,
There was no
yeah, I'd like that
Yep.
somehow resolved before we get
Yeah.
into larger public goals.
So the ones that have question marks, and obviously tonight, based on the discussion, the ones that involve OES will be deleted from this list because right now there's nothing going to be
Right.
going to the October town meeting. The other part of that, having conversations with Tom Daly, Tom Parise, and Ron Collins about the timeline, we will not look to add funding for the sewer main extension. That's the other one that's on there
Right.
as a question mark to OES, because that can be done at a later date. That's not timely now. That's not something we're going to file for SRF funding in August. So that can come off the
It's
list
slowed
too.
down.
So the goal is to try to, shrink this as we go forward, and the question marks get answers and they become a definite, or they get removed. And that's really what this is really a checklist for us to make sure we get everything.
I love it that you bring it to us. Okay. Moving right along. The goals, thank you, Kevin, for, again, redrafting. You guys are a great team.
Well, Madam Chair, with this late hour, and I give you credit for the endurance, but
I know, we're all
have hit
fading.
the wall.
Yeah.
I really have.
Yeah.
We're 4 hours, so.
I know.
And perhaps other board members maybe have just looked at this for the first time. Could we move this to August, whatever date it is? August?
First week in August.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
There's no hurry on this. So that brings us to the town administrator's report.
And I'll go fast, because there's really only one vote that I need. So you heard from Tom Daly. We did get the grant from I'm getting tired too, the Economic Development.
Seaport Economic.
Seaport, thank you. They're going to be they're having a meeting in Chatham next Tuesday. We're going to be in fire union negotiations. Tom Daly's going to make the presentation, which basically is the final step in them voting to give us the $162,000, I believe. And that's the joint grant that we applied for with the town of Eastham. So that's very good news, because that just dollar for dollar reduces the cost to the taxpayer.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I wanted to mention. The one vote that I would ask you to take tonight is the memo in your packet from Scott McDonald. that we knew that we'd like to have the appointment of William Curtin and Daniel Shaheen, if I'm Kahine, if I'm butchering that name, I'm sorry, but they are going to be the new appointments effective from July 18th, 22 to June 30th, 2023, and to follow up follow the approved job descriptions. I would ask you to take that vote tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
500, John.
Good. And then I mentioned the rec study. This does everything we want. I had talked with Sarah Concanon. The only issue here is they won't be done till December. We want it done right. They asked us to do everything that was in the scope that I reviewed and approved with the board. And unless anybody has a reason not to go forward, I'm good to go. The money's in place. I can sign them up tomorrow, and we can have the kickoff in probably the beginning of August.
That's great.
And so what goes with that is that we had thought that we were going to try to get something in the October town meeting.
There won't be anything ready.
This will be May, it'll be May.
Yep, and this will dovetail in with your budget process for next year. So by December, that's when you start the budgets are getting finalized. Any additional staffing, this will all be part of the things.
Even
you
where it
consider during the
lands
process.
in the town structure.
That's right.
It's great.
That's right. So this is very good. And this is the group that we would look to engage, the town hall study that you'd like to do as well. This is what they do for a living. It's a municipal state agency. I don't have to bid it. We can get exactly what we want, and the price is going to be the most reasonable you're dealing with. So
Kudos to you.
But in the meantime, the part-time hire that we made,
Lyndon's here.
and he'll
Goes
continue,
forward.
he's,
funded for the full year, so that's not a problem.
Madam Chair, did we miss the MOA with Eastham? Did you?
Yeah, that should have been in there.
You know, it's in there.
No, it's in-
There was
That's
one
I saw the
item.
Rock
Got
Harbor.
it.
I missed it, the first one.
Yeah.
That we've been waiting for. Jackie and I, the biggest thing that we had to do was reconcile the final numbers because we ran out of money. And actually, Eastham funded the final piece that we needed for the permitting.
Wow.
And some of the work. And so everything's great. The MOA is in here. It would be a vote to authorize the chair to sign. Eastham has agreed to reimburse us $141,611. And that's for the project that Orleans funded 100% of the construction. But it was a joint effort to get to the design and the permitting.
We
So
knew.
this is great.
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I am showing, John, on our August 3rd meeting, a 5 o'clock start for executive session.
Yeah, so that's one we were going to have, just an update on where we are with the police and fire negotiations. And we'd have Mike Ford come in, obviously, and we'll add the third bullet of talking about we'll have him in the executive session as well, because we'll add the item to have a further discussion on executive session, Eldridge Parkway properties that we continued from tonight. So
And-
I'll update this from then. And we can add the goals to that night, or for?
We can add the goals, and then Kathy will also be in to talk about ARPA funds.
Yep.
So Mark's question was well-timed.
Yes.
If you gentlemen are okay, I would say that we postpone all other discussion, and I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Can I just mention
Oh,
one, I
yes.
apologize, because it's time sensitive and it won't be around for our next meeting.
Yes.
The Charter Review is having a public hearing on Monday at 5:30, so if the public's out there and interested in attending, please make sure, I'm just saying things that are,
If you're still listening at
Yeah.
9 o'clock.
and the rest I can do, we have a lot of updates, but,
Great, thank you.
sorry.
No, it's good. Where was that motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Take us out, Mia.